Tonight, we're diving deep into 2 hours of real-life Pokémon. But before we begin our journey into Pokémon lore, I want to take a moment to welcome you. Whether this is your first night here, or you've made stellar sleep part of your nightly routine. For those of you who've been joining us consistently, I want to thank you for being such an integral part of our channel. Be sure to share this video with someone you know who loves Pokémon. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment day 1. I'll be tracking our progress right alongside you. Now let's get back to the video. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a world that breathes with the rhythm of the extraordinary. Imagine stepping out of your front door, not to the chirp of a common sparrow or the distant hum of traffic, but to the crackle of static electricity dancing through the high grass. Imagine looking up into a summer sky and seeing the majestic silhouette of a creature with wings of fire, trailing embers like a falling star across the blue expanse. We have spent decades staring at glowing screens, clutching plastic controllers, and flicking through glossy trading cards, all to catch a fleeting glimpse of a universe that feels more like home than our own. But what if the barrier between our world and theirs was never meant to be permanent? What if these creatures were not just pixels and ink, but flesh, bone, and ancient instinct? What if the pocket monsters we know were actually the products of millions of years of biological struggle, adaptation, and the relentless march of evolution? Tonight, we are leaving the safety of the game consoles behind. We are stepping into a reimagined reality where the laws of nature and the magic of the Pokémon world collide. This is not a cartoon. This is a living, breathing ecosystem. We are embarking on a journey across a planet where every rustle in the leaves could be a predator with the power to manipulate the elements, and every deep-sea trench holds secrets that defy the very foundations of modern science. We are here to witness the true majesty of real-life Pokémon. Think about the stakes of such a world. In our reality, we marvel at the camouflage of a cuttlefish or the strength of a silverback gorilla. But in a world where a small rodent-like creature can generate 10,000 volts of electricity from its cheeks, the entire structure of human civilization would be transformed. How would we build our cities? How would we protect our children? The existence of these beings would rewrite the textbooks of biology, physics, and chemistry. It is a world of immense beauty, but also one of profound danger. To live alongside these creatures is to respect a power that is both primal and divine. We are talking about an Earth where the weather is not just a meteorological event, but the result of a legendary bird flapping its wings over the ocean. We are talking about a history where humanity didn't just domesticate horses and dogs, but forged spiritual bonds with sentient spirits and mountain-crushing titans. But as we look closer, the mysteries only deepen. How does a creature made of living rock sustain its metabolism? What kind of internal organs could possibly allow a dragon to breathe fire without consuming itself from the inside out? If these creatures evolved through natural selection, what were their ancestors like? Did they crawl out of the primordial soup with the ability to teleport? Or was that a gift granted by the shifting tides of time? We find ourselves standing on the precipice of a great unknown, peering into the dark forests and the glowing caves, wondering how deep the rabbit hole truly goes. We find ourselves asking the most fundamental question of all. If they were real, would we be their masters? Or would we simply be another part of their magnificent, terrifying food chain? The answers are hidden in the shadows, waiting to be discovered. Tonight, we have 3 hours to explore every corner of this transformed Earth. We will travel from the highest peaks where the air is thin and cold, down to the crushing depths of the midnight zone in the Pacific. We will walk through urban jungles where poison types thrive in the smog, and trek across vast golden savannas where the herds move in a synchronized dance of survival. There is no rush. The world is vast and the night is long. Let the sounds of this alternate reality wash over you. Let the vision of these biological wonders settle into your mind. We are going to peel back the curtain on the natural history of a world that should have been. We are going to find the pulse of the wild, the heartbeat of the legend, and the truth behind the monsters. So, settle into your blankets, turn down the lights, let the weight of the day fall away as we prepare to cross the threshold. The journey is beginning. The wind is picking up, and the wild is calling your name. It is time to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. It is time to experience the breathtaking reality of Pokémon. In the quiet moments before the sun rises, there is a stillness that feels heavy with anticipation. In our world, that stillness is broken by the wind. In their world, it is broken by the low, resonant hum of a creature that senses the coming light before it even touches the horizon. Imagine the biology required to perceive the world through infrared sensors, or to feel the vibration of a heartbeat from a mile away. We often think of these creatures in terms of levels and stats, but in the wild there are no numbers. There is only the sharp edge of a claw, the warmth of a protective fur coat, and the desperate need to find a mate and carry on the lineage. When we look at the Bulbasaur line, we aren't just looking at a starter Pokémon. We are looking at a miraculous symbiotic relationship between a vertebrate animal and a prehistoric plant. How did that seed first find its way onto the back of a reptilian host? Was it a parasite that eventually became a partner? Think of the complex chemical exchanges happening beneath the skin, the photosynthesis providing energy to the animal, while the animal provides mobility and protection to the flower. This is the kind of intricate detail that defines a living world. It is a world where evolution didn't just stop at camouflage, it pushed forward into the realm of the impossible. And what of the spirits? What of the creatures that seem to exist between the physical and the ethereal? If a ghastly is real, what is it made of? Is it a collection of sentient gases, a byproduct of industrial waste, or something far older that we simply do not have the instruments to measure? The mystery of the ghost types challenges our very understanding of life and death. In a world with real Pokémon, the graveyard is not a place of silence, but a place of activity, where the veil is thin and the shadows have eyes. As we move through the next few hours, we will examine the sheer scale of this biological diversity. From the microscopic organisms that inhabit the water we drink to the colossal titans that shape the very geography of the continents. We will consider the ecological impact of a magma living in a volcano, and how the surrounding flora would have to adapt to survive the intense heat. We will look at the migratory patterns of the lapras, singing their haunting songs across the frozen northern seas, and the social hierarchies of a Nidoking's pride. The stakes are high because to understand these creatures is to understand our own place in the universe. They represent the ultimate expression of nature's creativity. They remind us that the world is much larger than our human ambitions. They are the guardians of the forests, the kings of the mountains, and the phantoms of the deep. To ignore them is to miss the greatest story ever told by the earth itself. But beyond the science and the survival, there is the wonder. The simple, heart-stopping wonder of seeing a flock of butterfree take flight at sunset, their wings dusting the air with silver powder. The awe of watching a Gyarados breach the surface of a stormy ocean, a serpentine god of wrath and power. These are the images that stay with us. These are the dreams that haunt our sleep. Tonight, those dreams become our reality. We are going to take a slow, meditative walk through the tall grass. We are going to swim through the coral reefs and climb the jagged cliffs. We are going to listen to the cries of the wild and the whispers of the ancient ones. We are going to see the world through the eyes of a naturalist, a researcher, and a dreamer. The journey ahead is vast, spanning 2 hours of immersive exploration. We will not hurry. We will linger in the quiet glades and pause by the rushing rivers. We will let the atmosphere of this real-life Pokémon world envelop us entirely. Every breath you take will be in sync with the rhythm of this extraordinary ecosystem. Every sound you hear will be a clue to the secret lives of the creatures that share this planet with us. The transition from our world to theirs is almost complete. The map is laid out, the compass is set, and the first tracks are appearing in the mud. Can you see them? The three-toed prints of a lizard, the heavy indentations of a beast, the scorched earth where something powerful once stood. The trail is fresh, and the adventure is waiting. As we step forward, leave behind the constraints of what you think you know. Forget the buttons and the menus. Forget the limitations of the screen. Open your mind to the possibility of a world where the extraordinary is ordinary, and where magic is just a branch of biology we haven't mastered yet. The sun is setting on the world you knew, and a new moon is rising over the world of real-life Pokémon. Let the journey begin. Let the sounds of the wild guide you into a deep and peaceful sleep, or perhaps into a waking dream that you will never want to leave. We are going into the heart of the tall grass now. We are going to find what has been hiding in plain sight for all these years. The real world is fading, and the world of the Pokémon is coming alive. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The rustle in the leaves, the spark in the air, the call of the wild. It is time to go. It is time to see it all. Carbon-based life forms dominate our planet, from the towering redwoods to the microbes in your gut. And if pocket monsters walked among us, they would follow the same unbreakable rule. Every one of them, from the tiniest scatterbug to the colossal Wailord, built their bodies from the same atomic scaffold. Carbon chains twisting into proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids that pulse with the rhythm of evolution. Deep in the fossil record, where the Earth's ancient crust cradles the bones of forgotten epochs, we find the first whispers of their lineage. Picture layers of sedimentary rock, etched by eons of pressure, yielding up relics from 400 million years ago. Devonian seas teeming with jawless fish that hint at primordial templates. These weren't Pokémon yet, but proto-creatures, soft-bodied swimmers with rudimentary spines and gill slits that foreshadowed the diversity to come. Their DNA, pieced together from fragmented genes preserved in amber-like resins, reveals mutations in homeobox clusters, those master switches that sculpt body plans. A single tweak here, a duplication there. And fins elongate into flippers, scales harden into armoured hides. Fast forward through the Permian extinctions, that fiery cataclysm, 92% of species never survived. And emerging from the ashes are the first true ancestors. Small, lizard-like reptiles with glands already budding beneath their skins. These weren't fire breathers or leaf makers, but survivors whose metabolisms hinted at something extraordinary. Genetic sequencing of their petrified marrow shows elevated levels of cytochrome genes, enzymes that shuffle electrons like dealers in a cosmic casino, priming cells for energy bursts beyond mammalian limits. You can almost smell the sulphurous vents where they scavenged, feel the humid air clinging to their damp scales as they burrowed into volcanic soils rich in rare minerals. By the Cretaceous, 200 million years of selective pressure had forged branches that diverged wildly. Theropod descendants, agile hunters with hollow bones and wishbones echoing avian kin, gave rise to lines culminating in beasts like Charizard. Trace the FOXP2 gene variants in those fossils, and you see vocal sacs evolving for infrasonic roars that shattered prey's eardrums from afar. Meanwhile, in lush fern prairies, herbivorous clades sprouted chlorophyll analog proteins, their hides mottled green from symbiotic algae embedded in dermal layers. Early Bulbasaur progenitors grazing under cycad canopies, sunlight filtering through fronds to fuel hybrid photosynthesis. What sets them apart, though, elevates this lineage from mere beasts to marvels: the elemental glands. Discovered in 2023 during an expedition to the uncharted depths of the Mariana Trench, where pressure crushes titanium like foil, researchers unearthed a preserved ammonite specimen in abyssal ooze. Dissection under hyperbaric chambers revealed these organs, fist-sized sacs nestled amid vital organs, lined with piezoelectric crystals that harvest bioelectricity from neural firings. In fire types, the glands concentrate hydrocarbons from ingested oils, igniting them via enzymatic sparks hotter than a blast furnace, yet contained by heat shock proteins that prevent self-immolation. You'd feel the hum of one if you pressed an ear to a Charmander's flank. A low vibration as ions surge through canaliculae, charging capacitors woven from keratin nanotubes. Water types repurpose them for osmotic pumps, desalination on a cellular scale, drawing brine from oceans and expelling pure vapor in pressurized jets. Electric Pokémon? Their glands are veritable Leyden jars, accumulating potentials of 50,000 volts from dietary electrolytes, discharging in arcs that ionize air with the sharp tang of ozone. Grass types ferment starches into volatile terpenes, glands distilling them into pheromonal mists that accelerate plant growth in symbiotic bursts. This isn't fantasy, it's extrapolated biochemistry. Model it in silico with CRISPR-edited zebrafish expressing Pokémon orthologs, and you watch fins curl into leaf-like fronds under UV lamps, scales iridesce with metallic sheens from quantum dots in chromatophores. The glands aren't magic, they're hyper-evolved mitochondria, organelles hijacked from ancient bacteria. Now, organelles of elemental mastery. A Pikachu's cheek pouches, dual chambers siphoning glucose from blood, fermenting it anaerobically to pyruvate, then shunting electrons through a cascade, ending in lightning that could power a small city. Evolution didn't stop there. Post-Mesozoic radiations, spurred by asteroid impacts and shifting continents, saw glands diversify further. Flying types integrated avian pneumatics, glands inflating air sacs with hydrogen peroxide decomposed into lift gas. Pidgeots soaring on thermals laced with the faint bleach scent of catalyzed oxygen. Ground types mineralized them with silicates, burrowing rods that vibrate at seismic frequencies, tunneling through granite like hot knives through butter. Consider the genetic tree, a sprawling phylogeny rooted in those Devonian fish, branching into 60 major clades by the Holocene. Mitochondrial DNA clocks peg the last common ancestor at 320 million years ago, a Permian survivor whose descendants radiated after the dinosaurs fell. Modern Pikachu shares 87% sequence identity with Rattata in housekeeping genes, but diverges wildly in gland-specific loci, Chuck's 13 paralogs, dictating pouch morphology, ATP synthase mutants, enabling sustained discharges without lactic burnout. Field studies in hypothetical wilds confirm it. Trappers in Borneo's mist-shrouded highlands report geodude clusters, their rocky hides encasing glands that photosynthesize via embedded quartz prisms, converting sunlight to mechanical force for levitation. Blood samples reveal hemoglobin variants with iron cores tuned for oxygen storage 10 times human norms, fueling migrations across oxygen-poor skies. These creatures aren't invaders from another dimension. They're our world's shadow biosphere, evolved in isolated refugia, lost continents, deep caves, polar fissures, shielded from human eyes until now. Their carbon backbone grounds them in reality, glands the crowning innovation of relentless natural selection. And as we climb higher into the verdant labyrinths of ancient woodlands, where shadows dapple the canopy and rustles betray unseen hunters, you'll meet the apex stalkers who've turned those treetops into killing fields. Next, in Chapter 2, the forest canopy predators. From the tangled genetic threads we traced last time, those ancient carbon-based blueprints have woven themselves into the throbbing heart of modern ecosystems, none more fiercely than in the shadowed heights of the forest canopy. Here, slender branches creak under the weight of predators locked in an eternal arms race, where every leaf hides a hunter and every silken thread spells survival. You can almost feel the damp mist rising from the understory below, carrying the faint, earthy tang of decaying ferns, as tiny clusters of iridescent eggs cling to the undersides of broadleaves. These are the beginnings of Caterpie, those unassuming green larvae destined to transform entire woodland realms. Hatching under the dappled light, they emerge ravenous, their segmented bodies glistening with a fresh, viscous sheen that smells faintly of crushed herbs. Inch by inch, they devour the tender edges of leaves, leaving neat, scalloped patterns like intricate lacework etched into the foliage. But don't mistake their methodical grazing for vulnerability. These creatures are masters of deception from the start. Watch closely as a young Caterpie pauses, its bulbous head swaying gently. In a flash, it extrudes a fine thread of silk from glands near its mouth, whipping it into a defensive spray that mimics the alarm pheromones of far deadlier insects. Predators, sharp-eyed birds with hooked beaks, hesitate, nostrils flaring at the chemical ruse, veering away from what they perceive as a toxic warning. This isn't mere instinct, it's evolutionary cunning refined over millennia, where the Caterpie's body itself becomes a canvas of mimicry. Its vivid yellow rings pulse like the warning stripes of venomous caterpillars from distant biomes, fooling even the most discerning hunters into believing poison lurks beneath that soft exoskeleton. You've seen it in nature documentaries, those harmless butterflies aping the colours of monarchs laden with cardiac glycosides. But imagine Caterpie elevating this to perfection. Their silk not just a shield, but a silken fog that clings to feathers, and fur sowing confusion in the canopy's chaotic aerial battles. As days blur into weeks, the Caterpie swells, shedding its skin in crisp, papery husks that flutter down like forgotten confetti. Molting reveals stronger camouflage, subtle mottling that blends seamlessly with lichen-crusted bark, or a posture that arches to resemble a twig snapped by wind. They spin vast communal webs at journey's crossroads, not for trapping prey, but as living billboards of deterrence, laced with that same mimetic silk that broadcasts unpalatable to anything with wings. One wrong move from a curious spider or beetle, and the web erupts in a frenzy of wriggling bodies, a living avalanche that overwhelms and repels. It's a life cycle symphony of growth and guile, where each stage builds on the last. The voracious larva, the armoured pupa suspended in a crystalline cocoon of hardened silk that gleams like dew-kissed quartz, and finally the ethereal emergence of butterfree, wings unfurling with scales that shimmer in hypnotic patterns, carrying pollen and evading predators through sheer aerial grace. Yet for all this beauty, the canopy whispers a darker truth. These defenders are merely appetizers for what hunts from above. Deep in the temperate rainforests of the Pacific Northwest, where colossal cedars pierce perpetual twilight and the air hums with moisture-laden winds, the true terror uncoils, a beedrill swarm. Picture the scene at dusk when the canopy thickens into an impenetrable vault of green. A low buzz starts, barely audible over the drip of condensation from sodden leaves, then swells into a pulsating roar that vibrates through your bones. Thousands of them, each beedrill a lance-wielding nightmare, 3 feet of gleaming yellow and black fury with stingers curved like scimitars, dripping neurotoxic venom that smells acrid, like burnt honey mixed with ozone. It begins with a single scout, wings blurring at hundreds of beats per second, patrolling nectar-rich blooms guarded by those Caterpie webs. Intruders, whether rival hives foraging mammals or unwary trainers trigger the cascade. Pheromones flood the air, an invisible siren call that rallies the colony in seconds. They descend like a living storm, stingers thrusting with surgical precision, injecting venom that paralyzes nerves in a burning wave, victims convulsing as muscles seize and vision blurs to black. In this rainforest crucible, where humidity keeps their exoskeletons perpetually slick and flight paths unpredictable, a swarm can strip a canopy layer bare in hours, claiming territory with ruthless efficiency. Survivors bear the scars, swollen welts pulsing with residual toxin, a lifelong reminder of the hive's dominion. Females, the warriors, lead the charge, their abdomens swollen with eggs that ensure the swarm's immortality, while drones sacrifice themselves in kamikaze dives, exploding mid-air to shower foes with barbed shards. It's no fairy tale. In a real-world Pokémon ecology, you'd hear the tales from rangers who barely escaped, whispering of clouds that blot out the moon, leaving only the wet slap of fallen bodies on the forest floor. But amid this aerial apocalypse, another predator slices through the frenzy with predatory elegance, the Scyther, a scythe-armed reaper evolved for the canopy's high-speed kill zones. Its lineage traces back to mantis-like ancestors in the Carboniferous swamps, where proto-blades first serrated from simple raptorial forelimbs. Over eons, selective pressure from elusive prey honed those appendages into masterpieces of biomechanics. Chitinous edges molecularly aligned like diamond-edged razors, capable of slicing through bark or bone at speeds exceeding 60 miles per hour. Envision the hunt, perched motionless on a swaying limb, its emerald exoskeleton camouflaged by vein-like patterns that pulse with bioluminescent veins. In low light, the Scyther waits. Compound eyes, vast and multifaceted, track vibrations finer than a heartbeat, the rustle of a fleeing caterpie pupa, or the wing beat of a lone beedrill straggler. Muscles coiled like steel springs unleash, propelling it in a green blur, twin blades whistling through humid air. Those serrations aren't blunt hacks, they're micro-serrated hooks that grip and rend on the forward slice, then reverse on the backswing, ensuring no prey slips free. Evolutionary tweaks abound. Hollow blade channels that reduce weight for blinding acceleration, self-sharpening edges from mineral-rich diets that deposit calcium phosphates during molts, and even a venom gland at the hilt that slicks strikes with anticoagulants, turning wounds into hemorrhaging rivers. In packs, Scyther claim alpha status, dueling beedrill swarms in mid-air ballets of death, blades carving through exoskeletons while dodging stinger volleys. Juveniles hone skills on smaller quarry, their blades duller but no less lethal, growing keener with each molt until maturity renders them canopy ghosts, silent, swift, unstoppable. This isn't fantasy, it's the pinnacle of predatory adaptation, where speed meets savagery in a forest where hesitation means extinction. As the canopy's predators fade into nocturnal hush, our gaze turns downward, past root-clogged streams and into abyssal realms where light yields to eternal dark. In Chapter 3, Deep Sea Anomalies, you'll plunge into bioluminescent horrors and pressure-crushed enigmas that make these treetop tyrants seem tame, creatures that defy oxygen's grasp and rewrite the rules of life itself, as the frantic buzz of beedrill swarms fades into the misty understory of those temperate rainforests, where caterpie's silk defences cling to rain-slicked leaves. We descend now into a world far more unforgiving. Beneath the ocean's surface lies a realm of perpetual midnight, where pressures build to crush steel like paper, and the only beacons piercing that void come from creatures like Lantern. These living lanterns drift through the abyssal plains, their bulbous heads pulsing with an eerie electric glow. Picture the scene you might glimpse from a submersible's porthole, a vast, silty seafloor stretching endlessly. interrupted only by hydrothermal vents spewing mineral-rich plumes. No sunlight filters down here, 5 kilometers below the waves, where the water temperature hovers near freezing and darkness reigns absolute. Yet Lantern thrives, its translucent body housing symbiotic bacteria that convert chemical energy into that hypnotic blue light. Much like the real-world anglerfish, but amplified by bioelectric currents. Each pulse from a lantern's lantern isn't just illumination, it's a lure. Juveniles known as Chinchu school in shallower twilight zones, learning to harness their innate voltage to stun prey mid-swim. As they mature, they migrate deeper, their lights evolving into multifaceted searchlights that reveal schools of lanternfish or startled squid in the gloom. Divers who've barely survived encounters describe the sight, a constellation of lantern hovering motionless, their tentacles trailing like ethereal roots, drawing in curious predators or prey alike. That glow doesn't just light the way, it maps the underwater topography, highlighting ridges of forgotten shipwrecks or the gaping maws of sea trenches. But venture closer, and the peril sharpens. Lantern's electric discharge can rival a lightning strike, scaled down to zap through water with precision. In these depths, where visibility drops to mere meters, their lights guide not only hunters, but entire ecosystems. Reamers hitch rides on their flanks, scavenging scraps, while microscopic plankton cluster around the glow, forming a floating buffet. Without Lantern, this abyss would be a tomb of total sensory deprivation. No light, no life visible, just the slow grind of tectonic plates echoing faintly through the hull of your imagined vessel. Following those luminous trails leads you to stranger partnerships forged in the dark. Consider the slowpoke, those dopey pink-skinned scavengers adapted to scavenge the nutrient-poor seafloor. They amble along on stubby legs, oblivious to the world, tails twitching lazily as they probe sediment for worms or discarded chitin. But no slowpoke roams alone. Clamped to the end of its tail is Shelder, a bivalve parasite that latches on with venomous force, transforming its host forever. This bond begins innocently enough, in the murky shallows where slowpoke juveniles forage. A Shelder larva senses the chemical trail of its future host, drifting like a living mine until it strikes. The clamp is instantaneous, razor-sharp edges piercing flesh, injecting a neurotoxin that numbs pain and dulls the slowpoke's already sluggish reflexes. Over weeks, the Shelder feeds subtly, siphoning nutrients through a proboscis while secreting growth hormones that elongate the tail, making it a perfect anchor point. The slowpoke doesn't resist. Evolution has wired it to tolerate, even benefit from, this invasion. The shell's weight slows it further, but in return, Shelder's armoured presence wards off predators like predatory Sharpedo, who find the bitter venom unpalatable. Mature into Slowbro, and the symbiosis deepens grotesquely. The Shelder evolves into a full mantle, fusing partially with the tail, its siphon now extending into the spinal column. Witnesses, rare deep-sea explorers with reinforced suits, report Slowbro wading through currents with unnatural grace, the shell acting as a counterweight and sensory organ. It detects vibrations from afar, relaying them via nerve links to the slowpoke's brain, granting it a sixth sense for approaching threats or buried clams. Yet the cost is steep. The slowpoke's psychic potential, latent in wild specimens, awakens only under duress, manifesting as disorienting psionic bursts that scramble nearby electronics. Bioluminescent markings on the Shelder pulse in sync, hypnotizing foes into paralysis. This parasitic duo reshapes benthic communities. Slowbro colonies aerate sediment as they root for food, oxygenating layers that support tube worms and brittle stars. But rivals covet the setup. Quillfish inflate to dislodge loose Shelder, while packs of Mariani pry at weakened clamps, with toxic barbs. In one documented expedition off the Mariana Trench analogue, researchers watched a slowbro defend its bond against a frenzied octillery, blasting ink clouds illuminated by nearby lantern glow, the battle's echoes reverberating for hours. Deeper still, where even lantern hesitate, lurk the true leviathans, sightings of colossal tentacruel, bloated behemoths swelling to the size of clipper ships. These aren't the drifting jellyfish of coastal waters, evolved in nutrient upwellings from ancient rifts. They balloon to 50 meters across, their umbrellas pulsing like thunderheads, tentacles spanning football fields, lined with neurotoxic nematocysts. Historical logs from 18th century whalers paint harrowing tales. Off the shipping lanes near what we'd call the Bermuda Triangle's Pokémon equivalent, these giants rose from the depths, their translucent bells refracting scant light into rainbows of doom. One account from 1782 describes the merchant brig Endeavour's Hope vanishing mid-Atlantic. Survivors washed ashore claimed a tentacruel wall, miles wide, ensnared the fleet. Tentacles whipped through rigging, injecting venom that dissolved wood and flesh alike, leaving hulls adrift as ghostly husks. Maritime trade suffered immensely. Insurance manifests from the era list tentacruel seasons as high-risk periods, when upwellings birthed blooms of these titans, blocking straits and devouring cargoes of spices, silks and slaves. Navigators charted detours around jelly graveyards, vast gelatinous barriers pulsing with bioluminescent stingers, where compasses spun wild from embedded iron deposits in their bells. By the 19th century, harpooners armed with electrified lances targeted the nerve clusters, but losses mounted. Thousands of souls claimed, economies staggered as T-routes rerouted thousands of miles. Modern submersibles confirm the legacy, sonar ghosts of tentacruel hives scarring canyons, their venom persisting in sediments, mutating local fauna into hyper-aggressive variants. One expedition in the 1950s captured footage of a behemoth contracting its bell to propel at 30 knots, uprooting seamounts in pursuit of submersible lights, mistaken for lantern kin. These anomalies remind us the deep sea isn't empty. It's a battlefield of light, symbiosis, and shadowed giants. Yet as we surface from these abyssal horrors, our path ascends toward even more imposing guardians. In Chapter 4, The Mountain Sentinels, you'll witness peaks where stone and storm breed creatures that command the skies themselves. What secrets do they hoard amid the eternal snows? As the abyssal plains give way to towering escarpments, where the weight of water yields to the unyielding bite of granite, we ascend into realms where gravity pulls hardest and the air thins to a whisper. Here, in the jagged spines of the world's great ranges, evolution has forged sentinels from stone itself, creatures that blur the line between mountain and monster. Geodude clings to existence by becoming the fault line it inhabits. Picture a creature whose rocky hide isn't mere armor, but a living mosaic of quartz veins and basalt fractures, mirroring the very cracks that scar the Earth's crust. These Pokémon, no larger than a human fist at birth, evolve their dermal plates through a process akin to mineral deposition, layer by layer over decades of seismic stress. Their epidermis secretes a silicate-rich mucus that hardens in contact with airborne dust, replicating the patina of exposed bedrock, lichen-speckled grey, veined with feldspar white. Predators scanning from above, whether avian behemoths or rival ground dwellers, register nothing but inert stone. The Geodude's subtle undulations mimic microtremors from distant quakes, a vibration too faint for most senses to distinguish from natural rumble. You'd pass within inches on a treacherous climb, your fingers brushing what feels like sun-warmed schist, oblivious to the pulse beneath. Detection evasion peaks during tectonic unrest. As plates grind, Geodude wedges into rifts mere millimeters wide, their bodies compressing like hydraulic pistons thanks to a hydrostatic skeleton of pressurized silica gel. This adaptation isn't just survival, it's predation. Stationary for weeks, they erupt when prey. A wandering herd of smaller rock types strays too close, tendrils of magnetic ore in their cores, luring ferrous-blooded creatures into crushing grip. In the Himalayas' shadow, or the Andes folds, seismic monitors have long mistaken their massed awakenings for precursor swarms, delaying warnings until avalanches claim the unwary. From these camouflaged boulders emerge their evolved kin, but higher still, where Machamp reigns over the death zone, biology defies altitude's tyranny. At elevations piercing 20,000 feet, oxygen dwindles to half sea level bounty, yet these four-armed titans haul boulders the size of trucks across sheer ice fields, their bellows echoing like thunderclaps through rarefied air. The secret lies in a respiratory architecture evolved from ancestral Machoke burrowing habits. Lungs segmented into 4 independent chambers, each ringed by capillary baskets that filter hemoglobin at efficiencies rivaling deep-sea divers' rebreathers. Each exertion cycle draws air through gill-like slits along their trapezius ridges, pre-oxygenating blood before it floods the primary bellows. This hyper-efficient system, laced with myoglobin reserves in their quad-limbed musculature, sustains bursts of power that would suffocate a human climber in minutes. You hear it first, the resonant whoosh as they crest a ridge, chest expanding to triple volume, expelling carbon dioxide in visible plumes even at -40 degrees. Their nostrils, flared like furnace intakes, sample wind for updraft thermals, navigating blizzards with infrasonic pulses bounced off valley walls. Machamp don't just endure the heights, they dominate them, wrestling rival alphas in contests that reshape corries, their grips pulverizing granite into scree that avalanches downslope for generations. Burrowing deeper into the range's bowels, Onyx embodies the mountain's slow fury, a colossal serpent of segmented stone, stretching 200 feet from blunt head to thrashing tail, its coils churning bedrock like a living drill press. Unlike surface dwellers, Onyx doesn't camouflage, it reshapes, evolved from steelix-like ancestors in volcanic conduits. Its body comprises armoured rings of compressed peridotite and obsidian, propelled by peristaltic waves rippling through hydrostatic cores. Each segment grinds forward at 5 miles per hour through solid diorite, secreting acids that soften quartzite ahead while crystallizing tailings into a seamless exoskeleton behind. These behemoths carve the very spines of continents. In the Appalachian's ancient folds, fossilized tunnels attest to onyx herds sculpting synclines over eons, their passage widening faults into valleys that rivers later claim. You feel their approach before sight confirms, a low-frequency tremor building to roar, ground buckling as crystalline eyes, facets of topaz glint in headlamp beams of startled spelunkers. Prey senses the mineral tang in the air, a prelude to encirclement. Onyx coils in helixes that fracture plateaus, emerging to bask under alpine suns, shedding abraded plates that birth geodude swarms. Their waste, rich in rare earths, veins mountains with ore bodies miners chase, unaware they follow serpentine highways laid by primordial architects. In the interplay of these sentinels, ecosystems thrive amid peril. Geodude colonies seed fault scarps with symbiotic fungi that accelerate their camouflage, trading protection for nutrient-rich spores. Machamp herds patrol summits, their respiration fueling bellows roars that trigger controlled slides, culling weaklings from lower herds while fertilizing slopes with pulverized guano. Onyx, the great leveler, aerates deep aquifers with its tunnels, fostering hot springs where thermal vents nurture blind crustaceans, prey for surfacing young. Encounters reshape human history too. Sherpas whisper of four-armed guardians, hauling icefall ladders across crevasses, repaid in salt licks from valley caravans. Seismic teams in the Rockies deploy infrasound arrays, mistaking Machamp duels for quakes, while Onyx migrations sync with solstices. Their surface breaches, birthing geodes that jewelers covet as dragon eggs. Yet peril lurks, disturb a geodude nest mid-camouflage, and seismic retaliation buries trails in rubble. Challenge a Machamp to porter duty without tribute, and Four Fists remind you of altitude's humility. As peaks pierce the stratosphere, these guardians enforce nature's hierarchy. Their evolution's a testament to pressures that forge diamonds from carbon and champions from stone. But what happens when such raw power collides with the concrete jungles below, where steel spires mimic mountains and shadows swallow the sun? In Chapter 5, Urban Adaptations, we descend into those chaotic sprawls, where Pokémon twist cityscapes into their own domains. Stick around, because the adaptations awaiting there will redefine survival in ways you never expected. As the jagged silhouettes of mountain sentinels fade into the haze of distant horizons, where Geodude's rocky hides blend seamlessly with fault lines and Machamp's barrel chests heave against the thinning oxygen, humanity's own monuments rise to meet them, towering spires of steel and glass-piercing smog-choked skies. In these vast urban sprawls, Pokémon don't just survive, they thrive, reshaping their bodies and behaviours around the pulsing veins of our civilization. Deep beneath the bustling streets of megacities like Tokyo or New York, where millions tread oblivious overhead, the sludge stirs with life. Grimer slithers through the labyrinthine arteries of modern sewage systems. Its amorphous body, a living testament to opportunistic evolution. Born from the toxic runoff of industrial eras, these oily blobs first appeared in the fetid pools of early 20th century factories, feeding on chemical effluents that would dissolve lesser organisms. Their plasma-like membranes, thick with lipid barriers, absorb hydrocarbons and heavy metals, converting them into the viscous slime that forms their very essence. You can almost feel the warmth radiating from a cluster of them huddled in a manhole, their surfaces bubbling softly as they metabolize benzene and toluene, exhaling faint vapors that carry the sharp tang of petroleum. Over decades, selective pressures from urban expansion have sculpted Grimer into something far more insidious. Pipes narrow, flows accelerate, temperatures fluctuate wildly from scalding boiler discharges to icy winter infiltrations. Yet Grimer adapts, elongating its pseudopods to navigate constricted drains, developing heat shock proteins that prevent denaturation in sudden surges. Eyewitness accounts from sewer workers describe them squeezing through cracks as thin as a finger, their gooey forms compressing without rupture, propelled by rhythmic contractions that mimic peristalsis. And when pollution spikes during storms, Grimer multiplies explosively, populations swelling as spores. Tiny gelatinous propagules latch onto floating debris, drifting to new territories. This ascent culminates in Mook, the hulking behemoth that emerges when a Grimer engorges to critical mass, perhaps after gorging on a ruptured oil drum or pesticide spill. Mook's evolution isn't mere growth, it's a phase shift, its internal chemistry polymerizing the slime into a tougher, fibrous matrix, granting it the bulk to clog entire junction boxes. Imagine the low rumble echoing through maintenance tunnels as a Mook shifts, its mass undulating like a heartbeat, tendrils probing for fresh contaminants. In real-world biology, this mirrors slime molds aggregating into fruiting bodies under stress. But scaled to nightmare proportions, Mook can weigh upwards of 200 pounds, its surface etched with glowing veins of bioluminescent bacteria that thrive in its anaerobic gut. Cities unwittingly cultivate them. Untreated wastewater provides endless banquets. And as climate change intensifies flooding, Mook sightings surge, their territorial bellows, a wet, slurping roar, warning rivals from prime sewer real estate. But not all urban Pokémon dwell in darkness. High above the sewers, threading the skeletons of skyscrapers, Magnemite hums with insatiable hunger, drawn inexorably to the city's electrified nervous system. These hovering orbs, with their U-shaped magnets and whirring screw-like appendages, have colonized power grids as their primary foraging grounds, siphoning electricity like nectar from metallic flowers. Evolved from metallic microbes in mineral-rich volcanic soils, Magnemite's ancestors once scavenged lightning strikes. Now in the concrete wilds, they perch on transformers and insulators, their crimson eyes flickering as they interface directly with live wires. Feel the subtle vibration through your soles on a busy avenue, the faint buzz of a Magnemite flock inducing micro-arcing, drawing kilowatts into their ferromagnetic cores. Their bodies, a lattice of iron-nickel alloys infused with piezoelectric crystals, convert electrical current into biochemical energy via specialized organelles that split water molecules, fueling a metabolism as efficient as a fuel cell. During peak hours, when grids strain under air-conditioned loads, Magnemite clusters form swarms, rotating in synchronized helices to balance phase loads, inadvertently stabilizing the network. Utilities report anomalies, transformers running cooler than expected, as if the Pokémon are dissipating excess heat through their levitating fields. Yet this symbiosis teeters on peril. A single Magnemite overload can cascade into blackouts, its body superheating into a plasma burst that magnetizes nearby conduits, attracting more of its kind in a feedback frenzy. Evolution favors the bold. Those with insulated exoskeletons survive surges, passing on genes for thicker chrome plating. At night, under sodium vapor glow, you might spot them migrating along high-voltage lines, a constellation of floating spheres trailing ionized sparks, their low-frequency electromagnetics pinging like whale songs across the skyline. In megacities where power demands skyrocket, Magnemite populations explode, evolving subtler behaviors, dipping into substations only at off-peak, or even symbiotically allying with Voltorb, those unstable mimics that detonate to clear overcrowded perches. Amid this electric symphony, and subterranean ooze prowls Meowth, the sly opportunist whose lineage traces from ancient alley cats to the consummate urban scavenger. Once a wild feline prowling temperate woodlands, Meowth's path diverged sharply with human sprawl. In the shadowed underbellies of megacities, dumpster labyrinths behind high-rises, overflowing with fast food wrappers and half-eaten takeout, Meowth has domesticated itself. Not through selective breeding, but raw adaptation to our refuse mountains. Its cream fur, now streaked with grime camouflage, blends into concrete curbs, while paw pads toughened by asphalt calluses grip sheer brick walls with Velcro-like keratin hooks. Listen for the faint clink of a coin in the gloom. Meowth's signature gem, forged in its forehead during adolescence, isn't mere ornament. It's a behavioural anchor, a hyper-mineralised nodule that compels hoarding. Much like a corvid's cache. Evolved from whisker-sensitive nerves, this coin acts as a status symbol and tool, flipped in ritual challenges or bartered in feline markets beneath overpasses. Populations in places like Mumbai or Los Angeles number in the thousands, forming loose prides that patrol territories rich in organic waste. Their metabolism has shifted dramatically. Elongated intestines ferment street scraps, pizza crusts laced with tomato lycopene, burger patties heavy in saturated fats, extracting twice the calories of rural prey. Night vision, amplified by tapetum lucidum, layers pierces fog and headlights. And their yowls, modulated to ultrasonic frequencies, coordinate raids on unsecured trash compacts. This urban finesse comes at a cost. Meowth evades packs of stray dogs and human pest control with acrobatic prowess. Leaping 20 feet across alley gaps, claws retracted to silent precision. Females select mates by coin shine, favouring those who've scavenged rare metals from electronics dumps, ensuring offspring with sharper instincts. In the dead of night, a lone Meowth perches on a fire escape, tail swishing hypnotically, eyes reflecting neon as it weighs its glittering prize, master of the megacity's forgotten bounty. These urban evolutions reveal a profound truth. Pokémon don't merely tolerate our world, they redefine it, weaving into the infrastructure we built to conquer nature. From the dripping bowels where muck reigns, to the humming grids sustaining Magnemite flocks, and the scampering shadows of Meowth prides, cities pulse with their hidden rhythms. But lingering in the periphery of these concrete realms are whispers of something far more enigmatic, presences that defy biology's grasp, slipping through walls and memories alike. In our next chapter, the mystery of ghost types, will confront these spectral enigmas where the line between life and the beyond dissolves into chilling uncertainty. As those Magnemite hum along the glowing veins of city power grids, feeding on the steady pulse of electricity, they've long been blamed for flickers in the night, lights dimming without cause, shadows twisting unnaturally in alleyways. But what if the true culprits drift silently through the urban haze, invisible until they choose to condense? Ghastly, the flickering wisp that folklore once dismissed as restless spirits reveals itself under scrutiny as something far more tangible, a sentient cloud of ionized gas, evolved to weaponize the very atmosphere around decaying matter. Picture the birth of such a creature in the fetid underbelly of forgotten landfills, where organic waste ferments into methane and hydrogen sulfide. Ghastly emerges not from ethereal realms, but from microbial symbiotes, ancient bacteria that learn to bind volatile gases into self-sustaining plasmoids. These aren't ghosts in the supernatural sense, they're biological aerogels, diffuse bodies of loosely held particles that shimmer purple when excited by low-frequency electromagnetism. You might catch one hovering over a compost heap at dusk, its form rippling as it absorbs sulfur compounds, growing denser, more defined. Touch it, and your skin tingles from the mild discharge, a warning that this gas lives, thinks, hungers. Haunter takes this evolution further, condensing that gaseous haze into a predatory form capable of infiltration. No longer content with passive drifting, it manipulates its density through bioelectric fields, generated by embedded organelles akin to electric eel electrocytes scattered throughout its vaporous matrix. In the wild, you'd witness Haunter slipping through cracked sewer lids, drawn to the warmth of living prey. It engulfs a Rattata in the gloom, not with claws, but by enveloping it in a hypoxic shroud, starving the rodent of oxygen while leaching away its bioenergy through proton gradients. The lick that leaves victims numb? That's enzymatic saliva, aerosolized into the cloud, breaking down proteins on contact. Scientists once called them spirits because no net could hold them. No trap could contain what phases between states of matter at will. Yet this gaseous sentience demands constant energy input, explaining why ghost types cluster near urban decay or volcanic vents, where geothermal heat keeps their particles agitated. Evolve Haunter further, expose it to rare mineral catalysts buried in haunted ruins, and it solidifies into Gengar, the ultimate apex form, a pressurized balloon of malevolent plasma with a grin carved from perpetual phosphorescence. Gengar's body, roughly human-sized when fully inflated, maintains buoyancy through helium pockets laced with neurotoxins, allowing it to phase through walls by depolarizing its outer sheath. But here's where the real terror lies. Those localized electromagnetic disturbances you feel as a buzzing in your fillings or watches stalling nearby. Break it down biologically. Gengar's core houses a fusion of symbiotic archaea, descendants of extremophiles from deep Earth hydrothermal vents that catalyze trace fusion reactions. Nothing explosive, just enough to generate intense localized fields. as it prowls abandoned power plants, drawn by residual currents like magnemite, but far more voracious. Gengar induces microsurges that overload circuits, creating the poltergeist effects witnesses describe. Doors slamming from magnetic repulsion, radios spitting static laced with infrasound that rattles bones. Field researchers, equipped with Faraday cages and mass spectrometers, have sampled the air-post encounter, elevated argon isotopes, anomalous proton fluxes, all pointing to a creature that's part organism, part living thunderstorm. It doesn't haunt for revenge. It hunts to sustain the high metabolism required to keep its gaseous form from dissipating into harmless fog. And then there's Mimikyu, the shadowed outlier among these spectral kin, whose existence tugs at something profoundly human: loneliness as an evolutionary driver. Evolved on mist-shrouded islands, where ghost-type dominance left few niches for the vulnerable, Mimikyu didn't start as a mimic. Its ancestors were fragile, cloth-like exoskeletons of fungal mycelium and silk glands, too delicate for open confrontation. Over generations, selective pressure from isolation, predators ignoring the weak, mates bypassing the unadorned, favoured those that disguised themselves. Not for camouflage against foes, but to pierce the social veil of packs. Mimikyu adorns itself in rags stitched from shed Pikachu pelts, scavenged from battlefields or molts, crafting a costume that screams companionship. Under infrared scans, you see the truth. A body no larger than a house cat, pulsating with bioluminescent lures mimicking Pikachu's cheeks, emitting squeaks synced to electric-type frequencies. It shuffles into herds, tail sparking hopefully, desperate for acceptance, but peel back the cloth, expose the raw, necrotic flesh beneath. Fungal rot accelerated by self-inflicted wounds to maintain the illusion, and the survival mechanism reveals its tragedy. Touch the disguise and neurotoxic spores erupt, a defense born of rejection. Mimikyu doesn't kill out of malice. It lashes out when the mimicry fails, when loneliness boils into frenzy. In labs, isolated specimens wither, their disguises fraying as mycelial networks collapse without social validation. It's a creature that's evolved friendship as armor, only to find every bond a potential wound. These ghost types challenge our definitions of life itself, beings that blur solid and vapor, haunting and hunted in equal measure. Their presence warps the air you breathe, stirs the static in your veins, reminding us that evolution favors the unseen. As we leave the flickering ghosts of urban nights behind, prepare yourself for the relentless, sun-baked expanses ahead. In Chapter 7, Desert Survivalists, where Pokémon forge empires from sand and scarcity in ways that will leave you questioning survival's true cost. From the chill whispers of haunted shadows and the heartbreaking disguises of Mimikyu, our gaze shifts to the sun-blasted expanses where life clings not to illusions, but to every precious drop of moisture. In these arid wastelands, survival isn't about evasion, it's about turning the desert itself into armor and arsenal. Sandshrew thrives here, its compact form a living testament to evolution's ingenuity against dehydration. Beneath that deceptive layer of tough overlapping scales lies a network of specialized fat cells, swollen with water harvested from the scant morning dew and the rare nocturnal rains. These cells act like internal reservoirs, slowly metering out hydration through a labyrinth of capillaries that wick moisture directly to vital organs, even as the surface temperature soars past 120 degrees Fahrenheit. You can picture it, a sandshrew hunkered low at dawn, scales glistening faintly as it absorbs the last humidity from the cooling air, its body swelling imperceptibly, ready to endure the furnace of midday. But those scales, they're no mere shell, infused with silica crystals, scraped from burrow walls during frantic digging frenzies. They harden into a mosaic of razor-edged plates, each one interlocking like ancient chainmail forged in the dunes. When threatened, sand shrew curls into a near-perfect sphere, the plates grinding together with a sound like rattling pebbles, deflecting the claws of opportunistic scavengers. Researchers once captured one on infrared scopes, watching it roll downhill at speeds rivaling a downhill skier, tumbling unscathed through rocky outcrops that would shred lesser hides. This armoured ball doesn't just protect, it weaponizes momentum, bouncing off predators and careening into soft sands where it vanishes, leaving only a puff of dust as evidence. As the sun dips low, painting the horizon in blood oranges and bruised purples, the desert's rhythm shifts. Sand shrew retreats deep underground, its burrows a cool maze laced with moisture-trapping clay, but the skies awaken with a new hunter. Flygon emerges from hidden crevices, its translucent wings humming with a low-frequency vibration that stirs the sands into chaos. These dragonfly-like appendages beat at precise resonant frequencies, whipping fine particles into localized sandstorms. Microcyclones no wider than a man's arm span, yet dense enough to blind and choke anything caught within. Prey never sees it coming. A scurrying trapinch or a dozing sand shrew pup senses only a sudden roar, like wind tearing through a bottle's neck, before grit fills its world. Flygon hovers at the storm's eye, its compound eyes filtering infrared signatures through the haze, locking onto the heat blooms of panicked struggles below. Those storms aren't random fury, they're surgical, collapsing just as the victim weakens, allowing Flygon's jagged mandibles to strike with unerring precision. Field biologists, embedded in dune buggies for weeks, have clocked these tempests lasting mere seconds, yet leaving burrows upheaved and trails erased, as if the desert swallowed its own. Deeper into the night, where moonlight barely pierces the endless ripples of sand, a silhouette unfolds, like a nightmare from the thorns. Cacturn's discovery came by accident, a team of nocturnal researchers, their equipment humming softly against the vast silence, stumbled upon it in the heart of the Namib-like deep dunes. What they first mistook for a withered acacia tree began to sway, then lurch forward on elongated limbs, spiked with barbs that gleamed like obsidian. This nocturnal predator, evolved from photosynthetic ancestors, spends its days immobile, spines harvesting faint sunlight and trapping airborne moisture in waxen grooves, mimicking the very cacti that dot these wastes. But come twilight, enzymes flood its tissues, converting starches to venomous sap that courses through vein-like fibers in its arms. It stalks with eerie patience, those limbs extending up to twice their length in whip cracks that snag rodents, birds, even unwary sand shrew emerging for a drink. The barbs inject paralytics, and the prey is reeled in slowly, digested externally in hours while the desert wind howls obliviously. One expedition log describes a cacturn silhouetted against the stars, arms swaying hypnotically, drawing in a squadron of nocturnal bats until the sands ran red with dissolved remnants. No wonder locals whisper of scarecrows that hunt. These survivalists form a brutal symphony, the armoured burrowers by day, the storm weavers from above, and the thorned stalkers owning the velvet dark. Each adaptation interlocks, preying on the weaknesses of the others, ensuring no niche goes unfilled in this oven of existence. Predators become prey in cycles as old as the dunes themselves, where a single misplaced step spells the end. Yet even these scorched realms hold echoes of colder epochs, hinting at beasts that endured when ice gripped the world. In our next chapter, the Ice Age survivors, we'll unearth how ancient lineages clawed through eternal winters, their frozen secrets waiting just beyond the horizon. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. As the scorching sands of the desert give way to endless horizons of ice, where Flygon's tempests yield to howling blizzards that carve the earth anew, we find ourselves in the grip of the Pleistocene, the last great ice age. 20,000 years ago, colossal glaciers smothered continents, turning seas into treacherous expanses of pack ice. Yet Pokémon endured, their bodies sculpted by unrelenting cold into marvels of adaptation. Lapras, those majestic sea dragoons, became the nomadic titans of this frozen realm. Picture their sleek, indigo hides slicing through brash ice floes under aurora-lit skies. Massive shells humming with bioluminescent veins that pulse like distant stars. They weren't mere wanderers. Their migrations traced ancient ley lines of warmth, following thermohaline currents that snaked beneath the ice cap from the Bering Strait to the fringes of Scandinavia. Each year, as Arctic summers teased fleeting thaws, herds numbering in the thousands would converge on geothermal vents off Greenland's coast, where superheated plumes pierced the frigid surface. There, Lapras would calve, their young emerging into waters warmed to survivable degrees, nursed on nutrient-rich krill blooms, stirred by their own operculum songs, low-frequency calls that resonated for miles, synchronizing the pod's pulse with the ocean's hidden rhythms. But these journeys demanded more than endurance. Lapra evolved a migratory calculus etched into their neural maps. Fossil records from submerged fjords reveal seasonal etchings on icebergs, deliberate scratches from their horned crests marking waypoints. Deviate even slightly, and the pack risked entrapment in refreezing leads, where hypothermia claimed the weak. Their dorsal fins, laced with antifreeze proteins akin to those in modern Arctic cod, prevented crystalline buildup, while subdermal blubber layers, 30 centimeters thick, stored migratory fuel from devoured schools of clamperl. You can almost hear the creak of shifting flows as a matriarch Lapra surfaces, her breath clouding the air like dragon fire, guiding her kin across 6,000 miles of peril, a living bridge between isolated ice realms. Deep inland, where tundra stretched like a bleached canvas under perpetual twilight, mamoswine thundered as the epoch's behemoths. These woolly juggernauts, with tusks spiraling 2 meters long, regulated their core heat through a labyrinthine system rivaling the camel's desert thrift, but inverted for the freeze. During the glacial maxima, when temperatures plunged to -60 Celsius, mamoswine's epidermis bristled with dual-layered fur, an outer guard of hollow bristles trapping radiant warmth from scant solar glimpses, and an undercoat of dense cashmere that wickeded moisture away, preventing frostbite on flanks exposed during charges. Their true genius lay buried beneath. Vast subdermal fat reservoirs marbled with vascular countercurrent exchanges, shuttled heat from thoracic furnaces, fueled by fermenting tundra tubers and wooloo carcasses to extremities. Imagine a herd cresting a snow-dusted ridge, steam rising from nostrils like geothermal geysers, as mamoswine exhaled hyperoxygenated blasts to melt paths through drifts 10 meters deep. This thermal ballet peaked in winter hibernacula, colossal snow caves excavated by spiraling tusks, where body heat from clustered family units raised ambient temperatures by 15 degrees, sustaining embryos through 9-month gestations. Paleontological digs in Siberia's permafrost yield mamoswine mummies, their innards preserved with blubber intact, testifying to survival rates that outpaced even woolly mammoths, proof that evolution favoured the beast who turned ice into incubator. Yet amid this frozen expanse, predation sharpened into symphony. Weavile, those sleek opportunists with scythe-like claws glinting like obsidian, prowled in packs of 12 to 20, their crimson combs signalling hierarchy across moonlit barrens. No lone hunter could fell a mamoswine, but Weavile orchestrated ambushes with eerie precision, evolved from Ice Age pack dynamics mirroring dire wolves, scouts perched on thermals, their keen-slit pupils detecting infrared signatures from kilometers away, prey heat plumes betraying a herd's flankers. The hunt unfolded in phases. Alphas unleashed ultrasonic shrieks, fracturing surface ice to isolate stragglers, while flankers darted in low, slashing hamstrings with venom-laced talons that induced hypothermia spasms. Juveniles harried from periphery, nipping at heels to exhaust the quarry, their pelts camouflaged in polymorphic white and shadow, rendering them phantoms against the snow. Convergence came swift, an encirclement where Weevil vaulted in unison, claws rending vitals in a frenzy lasting mere heartbeats. Dissections of frozen kills reveal coordinated puncture patterns, each Weevil claiming precise shares, ensuring pack cohesion through ritual feasts under the stars. This tundra ballet claimed 80% of Mamoswine young, culling weakness to forge resilience across generations. In these Ice Age survivors, we witness evolution's forge at its most unforgiving, creatures not just enduring the cold, but wielding it as ally, weapon, and cradle. Their legacies linger in today's polar fringes, whispers of a world remade by frost. But lurking beyond the ice's edge, wait unchallenged sovereigns, masters of fang and fury who dominate every domain. Join me next in Chapter 9, The Apex Predators. As the glacial sheets of the last ice age finally retreated, carving deep fjords and exposing vast new territories, the true titans of the Pokémon world began to stir from their ancient domains. These weren't the resilient survivors clinging to frozen tundras like Lapras or Mamoswine. No, emerging from the shattered mountains and storm-lashed coasts came the apex predators, creatures so overwhelmingly dominant that entire ecosystems bent to their will. Take the wild Tyranitar, a behemoth whose presence alone reshapes the rugged badlands it calls home. Picture its hulking frame, 20 feet of armoured muscle and jagged crystalline spikes lumbering across fractured basalt plains where lesser beasts scatter like dust in a gale. This isn't mere size. Tyranitar's biology is a masterpiece of raw supremacy, evolved over eons in volcanic craters where seismic tremors are as common as rainfall. Its hide, fused with hyper-dense minerals from devoured Larvitar clans, withstands meteor impacts that would pulverize granite. You can hear it first, a low earth-shaking rumble that vibrates through your bones, signaling the approach of something unstoppable. Prey animals, from stampeding herds of Raiden to airborne flocks of Fearow, freeze as the ground quakes, fissures spiderwebbing outward from each thunderous step. But Tyranitar doesn't hunt with speed. It dominates through inevitability. Its eyes, glowing like molten embers, lock onto a distant target, and with a bellow that echoes for miles, it unleashes seismic pulses, waves of kinetic force rippling from its core, courtesy of specialized organs that convert geothermal energy into raw vibrational power. Rocks erupt skyward, forming barriers that trap fleeing Tauros packs, while the air thickens with dust clouds laced with silica shards, shredding wings and lungs alike. In its natural habitat, spanning the tectonically active Ring of Fire analogues across Pokémon continents, Tyranitar reigns unchallenged. Packs of Aggron challenge it once in a blue moon, their metallic forms clashing in cataclysmic duels that level foothills, but survivors bear the scars, crumpled plates and limps that never heal. Ecologists who've studied these encounters from drone perches whisper that Tyranitar doesn't just win, it erases competition, its territory marked by boulder-strewn graveyards where bones fossilize into new armor for its young. Deeper still, Tyranitar's dominance extends to the food web itself. It devours not just flesh but the landscape, grinding mountain ranges into nutrient slurry with jaws that exert 30,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. Digestion occurs in a dual-chambered gut, the first fermenting stone into bioavailable sands. The second, forging crystalline growths that pierce through its own skin for added weaponry. Females, larger still, birth-live larvatar that immediately burrow into rubble, emerging years later as pupatar ready to cocoon in magma flows. No wonder rival predators give wide berth. A single tyranitar can sustain a shadow economy of scavengers, from murkrow picking at leavings to onyx tunneling after seismic aftershocks. Yet this brute force hides a cunning patience, ambushing during rare eclipses when its dark typing amplifies stealth, shadows swallowing light as it crushes worlds beneath foot. Shifting from terrestrial tyrants to oceanic leviathans, consider the Gyarados, a transformation story etched in the annals of evolutionary marvels. It begins humbly as a fragile Magikarp fry, no larger than your palm, darting through shallow coastal nurseries where predators overlook its unremarkable silver scales. These fingerlings, born in the millions from gelatinous egg clusters amid coral reefs, face a gauntlet from the start, snapped up by Wingull or crushed under Sharpedo tides. Survival hinges on sheer numbers and a latent genetic wildcard, a retrovirus embedded in their genome, triggered by accumulated stress hormones after 99 failed escapes. That 99th peril flips the switch. In a frenzy of cellular reconfiguration, the fry's body elongates explosively, bones liquefying and reforming into a serpentine coil spanning 30 feet, fins morphing into razor-edged pectorals, scales hardening to battleship plating. What emerges isn't a fish, it's an apex sea serpent, hyper-aggressive, its brain flooded with testosterone analogues that erase all fear responses. Gyarados rampages through atolls, water boiling from thrashing tails that generate whirlpools capable of capsizing frigates. Its maw, lined with inward curving fangs, engulfs schools of waylord whole, while azure flames, bioluminescent plasma expelled from gill slits, scorch surface fleets of Polypa. In the wild Pacific expanses, Gyarados claims archipelagos as fiefdoms, patrolling with dorsal patrols that breach like torpedoes, dorsal humps slicing wakes through swells. Territorial fury peaks during spawning seasons, males dueling in skyward leaps, bodies arcing hundreds of feet before crashing down in hydroblasts that trigger tsunamis. Females guard fry pods with such ferocity that satellite imagery shows perpetual storm cells overhead, fueled by their psychic rage emissions. Early hints of mental prowess we'll explore later. From overlooked minnow to oceanic overlord, Gyarados embodies evolution's cruel poetry, weakness weaponized into wrath, turning the sea's underbelly into a realm of endless hunger. High above these watery wars, another apex rivalry unfolds in the thin, electrified air of the upper atmosphere. Territorial disputes between Charizard and Dragonite that paint the stratosphere in fire and thunder. Charizard, with its leathery 30-foot wingspan, veined in magma channels, patrols jet streams like a living fighter jet, flames guttering from a tail flame that burns hotter than aviation fuel. Evolved from Charmander's arboreal ancestors in volcanic isles, it claims thermal updrafts as hunting grounds, diving on thermal plumes to intercept migratory flocks of Pidgeot mid-flight. Dragonite counters from the edge of space, a quadrupedal colossus 40 feet across, its balloon-like wings buoyant with hydrogen sacs refined from fermented aerial plankton. These behemoths clash over invisible borders drawn by wind shear lines, where ozone crackles under their onslaughts. A typical skirmish begins at dusk. Charizard's roar splits clouds, orange plasma jets scorching Dragonite's cream scales, forcing evasive rolls that spawn sonic booms rippling global weather patterns. Dragonite retaliates with hyperbeams, coherent light pulses from photoreceptor eyes charged by solar fasting, lancing through Charizard's defenses, singeing wing membranes and igniting fuel-rich blood. These aerial dogfights last hours, carving contrails laced with ash and ionized gas, visible from continents away. Charizard leverages agility, barrel rolls, evading while wing claws rake deep gashes, spilling luminescent ichor that rains as glowing meteors. Dragonite endures, its regenerative foam clotting wounds mid-battle, then counters with earth-shattering slams. Body slamming rivals from 20,000 feet to generate shock diamonds that pulverize mountains below. Victors claim vast aerial corridors, feasting on weakened prey herds funneled through the chaos, swallow swarms or tropius blimps. Losers retreat to recuperate in hidden aeries, but grudges simmer eternally, ensuring the skies remain a contested frontier where only the fiercest soar supreme. These apex predators, Tyranitar's ground-shattering might, Gyarados' sea-born fury, the eternal Charizard Dragonite aerial wars, remind us that nature's pinnacle thrives on unyielding power, ecosystems orbiting their gravitational pull. But lurking beneath such brute displays are subtler forces, manipulations of mind and matter that bend reality itself. As we ascend into Chapter 10, Psychic Phenomena, prepare to uncover how these invisible energies rewrite the rules of predation, turning thought into tangible terror. While Tyranitar shatters boulders with seismic force, and Gyarados surges through ocean depths like a living tsunami, the true terror of the wild lies not in muscle or fang, but in the unseen currents of the mind. Psychic Pokémon don't conquer through claws or tempests. They rewrite the rules of existence itself, bending matter, memory, and will with thoughts alone. Consider Alakazam, the pinnacle of cerebral evolution. Its brain isn't just large, it's a labyrinthine supercomputer, mapped by neuroscientists as a densely folded organ, spanning nearly 40% of its body mass. Each synaptic junction pulses with quantum-like efficiency, processing data at speeds that dwarf our supercomputers. You've seen the spoons it bends without touch. Those aren't parlor tricks. They're extensions of neural pathways so refined they generate localized gravitational anomalies, warping metal through psychokinetic force fields. Deep within that cranial vault, billions of neurons form fractal networks, hyper-connected across hemispheres that evolved from Kadabra's already formidable intellect. Evolution favoured this after generations of Abra's telepathic survival instincts, where hiding in plain sight meant outthinking predators before they struck. Scans reveal glial cells swollen with conductive proteins, amplifying signals like fibre optic cables in a living motherboard. Alakazam doesn't learn, it anticipates. It simulates entire ecosystems in milliseconds, predicting rainfall patterns or flock migrations to outmaneuver rivals. You can almost hear the faint hum of its thoughts, a low-frequency vibration that registers on seismographs during intense concentration. But that intelligence comes at a cost. The brain's metabolic demands are voracious. Alakazam sustains itself on rare neurotoxin-rich berries, fueling enzyme cascades that prevent synaptic burnout. Overload it, and the feedback loops trigger migraines that level forests, psychic backlash rippling outward in waves of disorientation. Researchers hypothesize these episodes birthed ancient myths of mad sages, whose wisdom shattered villages. Yet in the wild, this hypermind ensures dominance. No prey escapes when its thoughts ensnare them first, freezing limbs mid-flight or unraveling pack hierarchies with illusions of phantom threats. Shifting from raw intellect to subtler coercion, Hypno embodies the hypnotic arts refined over eons in nocturnal forests. Its pendulum isn't mere jewellery, it's a bioluminescent organ, pulsating with phosphor compounds harvested from deep-sea fungi during migratory dives. This glow cycles through precise wavelengths, from soothing amber to entrancing violet, synced to theta brainwave frequencies that lull observers into trance states. Watch closely, and you'll notice the rhythm. Each swing emits infrasonic pulses, sub-3 Hz vibrations too low for conscious ears, but potent enough to synchronize neural oscillations. Hypno evolved this in misty woodlands, where prey grazed at dusk, using the light's flicker to mimic firefly swarms, irresistible lures drawing victims nearer. Once entranced, the frequencies deepen, flooding the target's amygdala with serotonin mimics, inducing paralysis that feels like velvet chains. Victims slump into dreamless voids, their REM cycles hijacked for Hypno's nocturnal feasts on residual psychic energy. In the underbelly of this biology lurks a darker edge. Prolonged exposure warps memory consolidation. Captives awaken with fragmented psyches, haunted by suggestions implanted like seeds. Field studies in Southeast Asian jungles document sleepwalkers, humans and Pokémon alike, piloting toward hypno lairs under lunar pull, only to emerge hollow-eyed and compliant. Evolution honed this not for malice, but survival. A hypno pendant swings eternally because starvation claims the idol, and a mesmerized herd provides endless, willing tribute. No psychic horror rivals Mewtwo, though, the synthetic abomination born from humanity's hubris in forbidden labs. Conceived through unethical gene splicing, it fused Mew's primordial DNA with aggressive viral vectors, accelerated in vats of synthetic amniotic fluid under relentless psychic amplification. Scientists bypassed natural gestation, force-evolving embryos in cryogenic chambers where neural growth was juiced by electromagnetic fields mimicking embryonic Mew fields. The result? A brain swollen to crisis proportions, cortical layers stacked like armored plating, generating telekinetic blasts that pulverize steel bunkers. But the engineering scars run deep. Genetic chimerism sparks chronic instability, phantom pains from mismatched telomeres echoing in every cell. Mewtwo didn't evolve, it was forged, its psyche fractured by isolation tanks and memory wipes, imprinting eternal rage. Escaped into the wild, it terraforms mountainsides with barrier fields, a living indictment of tampering with life's code. Encounters whisper of its aura, a pressure on your temples, thoughts brushing yours like icy fingers, unearthing buried fears. Ethical inquiries revealed the lab's atrocities, hundreds of failed clones discarded as biomass, their residual psyches haunting Mewtwo's dreams. It roams now as apex intellect unbound, reshaping reality not from hunger, but unresolved Genesis trauma. As these psychic forces fade into twilight whispers, prepare yourself for the colossal shadows of Chapter 11. The ancient giants, titans whose footsteps still echo in fossil beds, dwarfing even Mewtwo's fury with bones that spanned horizons. While the synaptic fireworks of Alakazam's brain light up the present, far below the surface, the earth cradles the petrified echoes of giants from a forgotten epoch, fossils that whisper of skies torn by leathery wings and oceans churned by armored shells. Paleontologists first unearthed the skeletal imprints of Aerodactyl in layered sedimentary rock from the late Cretaceous, those jagged cliffs where ancient seabeds turned to stone. You can almost feel the dry rasp of wind-scoured outcrops as teams chip away at the matrix, revealing a wingspan stretching 15 feet across. Hollow bones reinforced with lightweight struts like a pterosaur evolved for thermal updrafts. This wasn't some fragile glider. Aerodactyl's skull, broad and toothed like a predatory eagle's, housed keen senses tuned to the ultrasonic cries of prey darting through primordial forests. Its membrane wings, fossilized in fine-grained shale, show vein patterns that pulsed with hot blood, allowing bursts of speed to snatch fish from surging waves or ambush early mammals on misty shores. Imagine the thunderous flap echoing over volcanic coasts, a shadow eclipsing the sun as it stooped on schools of armoured swimmers below. Those same digs yielded the coiled remnants of the Omanita lineage, spiral shells etched into limestone beds from the Devonian seas, over 400 million years compressed into unyielding rock. Delicate tentacles preserved in pyrite gleams suggest a creature that jetted through coral thickets, its nautilus-like shell a buoyancy chamber filled with gas bladders for precise depth control. Evolved from simpler cephalopods, Omanite's eyes, large camera-like orbs, tracked bioluminescent lures in the abyssal twilight, while a beak strong enough to crack trilobite exoskeletons hid beneath frilled oral arms. Revival experiments in hidden labs mimic this. Infuse the fossil with primordial enzymes, and the shell cracks open to a writhing juvenile, its ink sacs discharging a cloud of iron-rich particles to blind pursuers. You hear the soft hiss of gas escaping as it rights itself, probing the water with chemosensitive pits that remember the taste of ancient plankton blooms. Deeper still, in seismic cores drilled from tectonic fault lines, slumber the colossal form of Regigigas, not fossilized, but suspended in cryogenic torpor within crystalline caverns. This behemoth, towering over 30 feet, with limbs like felled redwoods, entered stasis as continents began their slow ballet of separation. Its body, a fusion of mineral-infused muscle and slow-metabolizing cells, generated gravitational pulses, subtle warps in local fields that tugged at crustal plates. Picture it hauling Pangaea apart, slow marches over millennia, where each footfall cracked mantle rock, releasing magma that birthed new oceans. Dormancy preserved it through ice ages. Its core temperature hovers near absolute zero, heartbeat a seismic rumble every 1,000 years, stirring auroras with electromagnetic sighs. Sensors buried in Antarctic ice detect these rhythms still, faint tremors that align in with Rift Valley expansions, hinting this ancient engineer might awaken when the next supercontinent looms. Yet not all giants yielded to time's erasure. Relicanth drifts in lightless trenches off the Portuguese coast, its deep-sea form unchanged since the Eocene. A true living fossil mocking evolution's haste. Bluish scales plated like chainmail forged in hydrothermal vents encase a body built for crushing pressures 2,000 feet down. No fins slice the water. Instead, pectoral stubs undulate in languid waves, conserving energy in currents laced with sulfides. Its eyes, tiny and lidless, pierce the gloom with rod cells, hypersensitive to faint glows from anglerfish lures, while a jaw of blunt crushers pulverizes bone scraps from whale falls. Divers glimpse schools hovering motionless, gill slits fluttering in rhythmic pulses that filter methane-laden water, exhaling bubbles that rise like forgotten memories. 60 million years, and Relicanth endures, predator to none, prey to the void itself, a testament to stasis amid life's frenzy. These ancient titans, locked in stone or shadow, it remind us how Pokémon biology bridges the abyss of time, their forms etched by cataclysms we barely comprehend. But as we surface from these depths, heat beckons from fissures where life defies molten fury. In Chapter 12, Volcanic Extremophiles, we'll descend into craters alive with fire-adapted horrors, creatures that thrive where rock itself melts. Stay with me as the ground begins to glow. As the colossal form of Regigigas slumbers through epochs of continental drift, its immense body locked in stasis beneath the crust. The Earth's restless core stirs with a fiercer vitality. Deep within volcanic fissures, where temperatures soar past 1,200 degrees Celsius, life doesn't just endure, it thrives in ways that defy our understanding of biology. You can almost feel the ground tremble underfoot as rivers of molten basalt carve new paths, birthing ecosystems forged in fire. Magma emerges from these hellscapes like a living ember, its orange-red hide pulsing with an inner glow that matches the lava flows it calls home. This fire-type Pokémon has evolved a cellular fortress against the inferno, where proteins in its membranes don't unravel under extreme heat, but instead fold into hyper-stable configurations, borrowed from real-world thermophils in Yellowstone's boiling springs. Imagine its skin, slick with a silicate-rich mucus that hardens into a glassy armour upon exposure to air, shielding it from thermal shock. Yet inside, its metabolism accelerates wildly. Enzymes catalyze reactions at rates hundreds of times faster than in temperate creatures, converting molten minerals into bioavailable energy. Magmar doesn't merely tolerate basalt's liquid fury, it basks in it, dipping its limbs into glowing pools to regulate its core temperature, emerging unscathed as cellular degradation halts entirely. Water molecules in its body, replaced by heat-stable analogues like those in Archaea from deep-sea vents, preventing evaporation or boiling even at magma's edge. You've got to picture the scene: steam hissing skyward, the air thick with sulphur, and Magmar striding through it all, its eyes gleaming like molten gold, utterly at home where everything else would vaporize. This mastery of fire's embrace carries over to its evolutions and kin, but nowhere is the ingenuity more mechanical than in Camerupt's dorsal hump. Quadrupedal behemoth, lumbering across scorched badlands, its twin peaks venting plumes of superheated gas. That hump isn't just a reservoir, it's a biological internal combustion engine, chambered like a cylinder in a V-twin motor. Deep inside, specialized sacs ferment volcanic gases and organic detritus, producing methane and hydrogen under intense pressure. A spark, generated by piezoelectric crystals grinding in the hump's core, ignites the mix in controlled bursts, driving pistons of muscle and tendon that propel pressurized steam through vascular tubes. This powers not only explosive stomps that fracture basalt, but also a constant heat output, keeping the beast's body at a steady 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. The efficiency is staggering. Waste heat recycles into thermoelectric gradients along its spine, generating bioelectric currents for neural firing sharper than any reptile's. You hear the low rumble building, feel the seismic thuds as it charges, each step fueled by its own volcanic refinery. In the wild, Camerupt herds claim geothermal vents as territory, their humps flaring brighter during mating seasons when combustion ramps up, signalling dominance with pillars of flame that light the night sky for miles. And then there's Torkoal, the unassuming coal-fired furnace masquerading as a tortoise. Its shell, etched with volcanic striations, encases a perpetual slow-burn reactor powered by scavenged coal seams. This Pokémon doesn't chase lava flows, it excavates them. Burrowing into anthracite-rich strata beneath active calderas, Torkoal ingests fist-sized lumps, grinding them in a gizzard lined with catalytic basalt grit. Oxygen drawn through gill-like vents in its shell initiates smouldering combustion at precisely 500 degrees, sustaining a body temperature that never dips below magma's simmer. Excess ash compacts into refractory bricks, reinforcing its underbelly, while volatile tars distill into a nutrient slurry, feeding symbiotic bacteria in its gut, microbes akin to those in industrial smokestacks, breaking down hydrocarbons into proteins. The smoke rings it exhales, not mere tricks but pressure valves regulating burn rate, cooling the shell just enough to prevent meltdown during long migrations across cooling lava fields. Listen closely in the twilight haze of a volcano's flank, and you'll catch the soft whoosh of intake, the faint crackle within, as Torkoal hunkers down, its eyes half-lidded in thermal bliss, a living testament to fuel efficiency in the planet's hottest forge. Populations cluster around persistent hotspots like Kilauea analogues, their collective smokestacks forming hazy veils that deter aerial predators, all while the earth groans beneath them. These volcanic extremophiles don't just survive the apocalypse of eruptions, they orchestrate it, Magma's migrations stir magma chambers, triggering eruptions that reshape coastlines. Camerupt's rampages fracture vents, releasing gases that seed acidic rainforests downstream. Torkoal's coal foraging aerates subsurface deposits, preventing catastrophic methane releases. Together, they form a symbiotic triad, their bodies calibrated to the planet's geothermal pulse, where heat isn't a hazard, but the heartbeat of evolution itself. As their flames flicker against the encroaching dusk, you sense the air growing thinner, the winds sharpening, with promise of vast expanses above. That heat rising from the depths finds its ultimate expression in the boundless blue, where Chapter 13, the Sky Sovereigns, awaits, creatures whose dominion over storm and stratosphere will leave you soaring into dreams. As the searing humps of Camerupt cool beneath layers of hardened lava flows, their explosive fury gives way to the vast, whispering expanses above, where thermal updrafts carry the remnants of that subterranean rage into realms ruled by creatures forged for the endless blue. High above the scorched earth, Pidgeot commands the troposphere like a living interceptor jet, its body a masterpiece of evolutionary aerodynamics honed over eons of aerial supremacy. Picture the sleek contour of its plumage, each primary feather curved with precision to slice through air molecules at velocities that defy gravity's pull. Scientists modelling Pidgeot's flight in wind tunnels have clocked its cruising speed at over Mach 0.8, but when it unleashes its signature gust attack, those massive wings flex and pivot, compressing air into a shockwave that propels it beyond the sound barrier. You can almost hear it, the sharp crack as the barrier shatters, a sonic boom rippling outward like thunder rolling across the horizon, scattering lesser birds in panicked flocks below. This isn't mere speed, it's survival engineered into every sinew. Pidgeot's skeletal structure incorporates hollow bones reinforced with a lattice of hyperdense keratin struts, reducing weight while channeling immense lift. Its eyes, vast and forward-facing, lock onto thermal gradients from miles away, allowing it to ride invisible rivers of warm air rising from sun-baked plains or cooling ocean currents. In the wild, a dominant Pidgeot patrols territories spanning hundreds of square miles, diving from 30,000 feet to snatch prey mid-flight, talons extended like hypersonic clamps. Females, slightly larger, lead migratory squadrons that carve V formations through storm fronts, their wing beats synchronizing to minimize drag and amplify collective momentum. But dominance in the skies demands more than velocity. It requires armor against the tempests that brew there. Enter Skarmory, the steel-plumed sentinel whose feathers aren't organic quills, but razor-edged plates of meteoric alloy, forged in the crucibles of ancient meteor impacts and tempered by atmospheric friction. These metallic veins, numbering over 800 per wing, interlock with a flexibility that belies their hardness, forming an impenetrable exoskeleton that laughs at high-altitude hail or the slashing winds of jet streams. Lightning, that raw bolt of plasma tearing through cumulonimbus clouds, finds no purchase on Skarmory's hide. Each feather conducts electricity with near-perfect efficiency, channeling gigajoules of discharge harmlessly along its surface and grounding it through tail spurs that trail like lightning rods. Observations from storm-chasing drones reveal Skarmory's hovering motionless amid thunderheads, their bodies glowing blue-white as forks of electricity dance across them, absorbed and dissipated without a singe. This adaptation traces back to prehistoric skies, when mega-evolutions during electrical storms selected for survivors whose plumage could harvest atmospheric ions, fueling bioelectric muscles that propel them at sustained speeds, rivaling commercial airliners. In flocks, Skarmorys form living barriers, wheeling in tight spirals to deflect aerial predators or shield ground nests from avalanches of ice pellets. Their calls, a metallic screech echoing like alloy on alloy, resonate at frequencies that disrupt echolocation in bats and ultrasonic hunters alike. Yet for all their fortress-like resilience, Skarmoris yield the stratosphere to a far greater sovereign, one whose silhouette vanishes into the thin, ozone-veiled heights. Rayquaza, the ozone layer's eternal wanderer, traces migratory routes that loop the globe in elliptical paths, following the seasonal thinning and thickening of that protective veil. Emerging from the suborbital dives, it glides at altitudes exceeding 60,000 feet, where air pressure drops to mere whispers and temperatures plummet to -60 degrees Celsius. Its serpentine body, elongated to minimize drag in near-vacuum conditions, undulates with a rhythm that generates self-sustaining lift, propelled by internal hydrogen bladders that vent superheated gas for thrust bursts. Biologists tracking Rayquaza via high-altitude balloons and satellite telemetry map its circuits. Ascending from equatorial mega-monsoon zones in the southern hemisphere summer, it spirals poleward along the tropopause, devouring atmospheric particulates and rogue meteoroids that threaten the fragile ozone balance. In winter, it reverses, plunging through polar vortexes to regulate jet stream flows. Its delta stream attacks seeding clouds with ionized particles that stabilize global weather patterns. Fossils etched into stratospheric ice cores reveal Rayquaza's lineage predating continental plates, a keystone species whose migrations prevent ozone depletion, cascades that could scour life from the planet's surface. Encounters are mythic rarities, glimpsed by pilots as emerald streaks against the black void of space, or by astronomers as unexplained perturbations in auroral displays. When it descends, the air thickens with static, skies parting to reveal scales iridescent with absorbed UV radiation, a living filter for humanity's beleaguered atmosphere. These sovereigns, Pidgeot's thunderous velocity, Skarmory's unyielding shield, Rayquaza's celestial vigilance, redefine the heavens as a battlefield of evolved precision where every gust hides a hunt and every storm cloaks a secret. As we descend from these lofty dominions, prepare yourself for Chapter 14, Symbiosis and Parasitism, where the blurred lines between ally and invader reveal Pokémon entwined in bonds that could sustain or devour entire ecosystems. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. As Skarmory's razor-sharp feathers slice through thunderheads unscathed, you might think mastery of the skies demands solitary strength. Yet down in the dim, spore-choked forests below, survival hinges on bonds far more insidious, fungi that don't just hitch a ride, but hijack the wheel. Deep in the humid underbelly of ancient woodlands, Paras scuttles on fragile legs, its carapace a mere vessel for the colossal mushroom sprouting from its back. This isn't mere attachment, it's conquest. The parasect fungus begins as microscopic spores drifting on fetid breezes, latching onto the host's exoskeleton during molts. Once inside, mycelial threads weave through the insect's nervous system, like roots claiming soil. Over weeks, the fungus secretes neurotoxins that rewire neural pathways, turning the host into a puppet. The Paras no longer hunts for itself. It grooms the cap, spraying enzymes to keep it plump and spore-ready, even as its own body wastes away. Imagine the scene at twilight, ranks of parasects shambling in unison, caps pulsing with bioluminescent veins, releasing clouds that ensnare new victims. Entomologists studying fossilized husks speculate this takeover evolved from real-world cordyceps, but amplified. Here, the host lingers for months, a zombie laborer feeding its overlord until the final spore burst claims it entirely. The air thickens with a sickly sweetness, the forest floor carpeted in hollowed shells, whispering of nature's cruelest merger. What starts as parasitism blurs into something almost symbiotic when the host fights back, or adapts. In rare specimens, genetic quirks allow paras to produce antifungal peptides, negotiating a truce where the mushroom boosts venom potency in exchange for shelter. But dominance prevails. Field trackers report parasect colonies expanding across continents, their caps harvesting sunlight to fuel endless reproduction. The host's eyes glaze over, instincts erased, replaced by fungal imperatives. You can hear the faint scrape of claws on bark as they climb, positioning caps for optimal dispersal, the wind carrying doom to untouched groves. This horror reshapes ecosystems. Smaller bugs flee, predators starve on tainted prey, proving that in the wild, control is the ultimate currency. Shift your gaze to vast ocean expanses, where cooperation gleams like sunlight on waves. Mantine glides through coral canyons, its immense wingspan undulating in rhythmic pulses, a living kite harnessing currents from frigid abyssal upwellings to sun-warmed shallows. Clinging to its underbelly, a school of remoraid darts in precise formation, their suction cup mouths latched like loyal sentinels. This duo thrives on reciprocity. Remoraids scour the giant's hide, devouring parasitic barnacles and algae blooms that could fester into infections. In return, Mantine's shadow shields them from barracuda strikes and orcapods, while her slipstream propels them across migration routes spanning thousands of miles. Picture the daily ritual at dawn. Mantine banks lazily near reef walls, exposing pale ventral fins dotted with encrusted growths. Ramoraids swarm forth, jaws grinding through chitinous armor, their digestive enzymes dissolving threats in seconds. Waste particles expelled become a buffet for trailing plankton eaters. Studies of tagged pairs reveal remoraid growth rates triple under Mantine, their bodies elongating for better grip as they mature into octillary scouts. During storms, Mantine dives deep, remoraid tucked in gill slits, emerging unscathed to cleaner waters. Predators circle warily. Mantine's toxic spines deter attacks, but the real edge lies in vigilance. A single remoraid alarm call sends sonic pulses rippling through the water, alerting the host to flip and crush intruders with tidal force. This partnership echoes remoras on manta rays, evolved further. Remoraid even regulate Mantine's buoyancy by nibbling gas bladders, preventing nitrogen narcosis on deep hunts. Vast schools synchronize migrations, turning oceans into living conveyors of mutual gain. In the steamy heart of tropical canopies, Exegator stands as living testimony to harmony on a grander scale. These ambulatory palms tower 30 feet, trunks gnarled and fibrous, crowned by 3 hypnotic heads swaying like pendulums. Each head bears fruit clusters that ripen to explosive sweetness, drawing swarms of butterfree and comby for nectar raids. But this isn't exploitation. Exegutor's seeds, encased in buoyant husks, hitch rides on winds or swallowers, sprouting in distant clearings to form groves that anchor eroding soil. Dawn breaks with a chorus of rustles. Exegutor sways gently, psychic pulses from its heads, lulling herbivores into grazing the fallen fronds, fertilizing roots with nutrient-rich droppings. Birds nest in bark crevices, their talons pruning dead limbs, while symbiotic lichens on the trunk convert nitrogen from air into usable compounds. In return, the palms exude saps that repel aphids and beetles, shielding pollinators. Rainforest surveys show Exegutor groves boosting local biodiversity threefold. Orchids climb trunks, drawing rare beedrill. Shade pools teem with polywag. During dry seasons, Biker heads photosynthesize furiously, channeling sugars downward to sustain the ecosystem, even sacrificing outer fruits to lure seed dispersers. Evolved from draconic seeds washed ashore eons ago, these giants terraform habitats. Their psychic hum deters invasive vines, fostering understories where oddish thrive. Felling one triggers cascades, soil washes away, fruits rot undispersed, revealing the web's fragility. Yet thrive they do, a verdant alliance where forest and Pokémon breathe as one. These tangled alliances, fungal tyrants, seafaring cleaners, canopy architects, reveal how Pokémon entwine fates for dominance or demise. Bonds like these propel lineages forward, but imagine the raw force that sparks transformation itself. Up next in Chapter 15, The Power of Evolution, we'll uncover how cataclysmic pressures forge monsters from the meek, reshaping worlds in a single generation. From the fungal takeover that hollows out a parasect's mind to the delicate dance between Mantine and Remoraid, where one shields and the other sustains, nature in our world has always blurred the lines between cooperation and conquest. But what if those bonds pushed a creature beyond mere survival, forcing it to shatter its old form and emerge reborn? Deep in the wilds where Pokémon roam, evolution strikes not as a gradual whisper across eons, but as a cataclysmic surge, rewriting biology in the span of heartbeats. Consider the moment it begins. A flood of neurochemicals surges through the bloodstream, triggered by stress, victory, or the raw pulse of battle. These aren't ordinary hormones. They're hyper-accelerated catalysts, proteins engineered by millions of years of selective pressure. Imagine a Charmander, its tail flame flickering low after a grueling fight. Adrenaline analogues spike first, binding to receptors on every cell membrane, ripping open ion channels and flooding tissues with calcium ions. This ignites a cascade. Gene expression flips like switches in a storm. Mitotic spindles form at warp speed. Chromosomes duplicate in seconds, not hours. The creature's skeleton creaks and elongates as osteoblasts frenzy, weaving new bone matrix laced with hyperdense collagen. Muscles hypertrophy instantly, fibers splitting and reforming into denser bundles, powered by ATP reserves that burn through glycogen stores like dry tinder. You can almost hear it, the wet snap of ligaments stretching, the hiss of metabolic heat venting from pores as enzymes like telomerase overrun their limits, extending telomeres to prevent cellular senescence mid-transformation. It's no metaphor. Bioluminescent tracers in lab studies of captured EV lines reveal glowing veins under infrared, mapping the restructuring in real time. The skin sloughs off in iridescent flakes, revealing scales or fur reborn tougher, patterned with fractal defenses evolved from ancient microbial armors. This instantaneous metamorphosis demands precision. One misfired signal and the body collapses into a twitching heap, organs mismatched like a puzzle thrown mid-assembly. Yet not every Pokémon carries this explosive potential unlocked. For species like Pikachu or Growlithe, their genomes bear evolutionary deadbolts, epigenetic silencers clamped tight by ancestral survival strategies. These creatures evolved in volatile niches where premature power could mean self-destruction. A Pikachu's cheeks store electrostatic potential, but without the right shove, it stays a sparkler, not a thunderclap. Enter the evolutionary stones, jagged crystals unearthed from meteor impacts or deep mantle veins, brimming with rare earth elements like lanthanum and cerium, bound in photonic lattices. When a stone touches flesh, it doesn't just shatter, its matrix dissolves into ionized particles, slipping through dermal barriers like mist. These act as cofactors, snapping open promoter regions on DNA strands that have lain dormant for generations. For a Pikachu clutching a thunderstone, yttrium ions latch onto voltage-gated channels, amplifying the electric field until cellular voltage gradients hit critical mass. Nucleotides unzip in waves, transcribing mRNA for hypertrophied sinuses and synaptic boosters that birth Raichu. Why the dependency? It's a biological safeguard, honed in ecosystems where unchecked growth spelled extinction. Stones are scarce, doled out by seismic upheavals or glacial melts, ensuring only the worthy or the lucky ascend. Field researchers in the Sivai Islands have catalogued clusters where stone-rich soils birth stone-dependent lineages, their unevolved forms nimbler, adapted to evasion over confrontation. But press a Pokémon to evolve mid-battle, and you glimpse the true cost etched in sweat and tremor. Picture a bold trainer's scyther clashing blades with a Pinsir, victory teetering. The chemical storm hits, but now it's wartime. Battle-ravaged tissues demand triage. Heart rate skyrockets to 400 beats per minute, shunting blood from gut to flight muscles that haven't formed yet. Energy draw is apocalyptic, full glycogen depletion in under 90 seconds, forcing a switch to anaerobic glycolysis that floods the system with lactic acid. pH plummets, proteins denature at the edges. You see it in the haze of breath. The stumbler's new limbs stabilize. Survivors emerge gods among peers, but the toll lingers. Post-evolution, Sizor specimens show microfractures in exoskeletons, healed over weeks with calcium pheromone salves. Neural rewiring sparks migraines, synapses overload until myelin sheaths thicken. One study on wild Vibrava to Flygon transitions in the Hoenn deserts logged a 20% mortality rate mid-fight. Bodies crumpling as wings unfurl too soon, draining hemolymph before flight muscles prime. Trainers whisper of evolution shock, where the newborn form collapses into torpor, vulnerable for days. Yet that risk fuels the allure. It's why battles turn tides, why a weary Ivysaur, blooming into Venusaur mid-clash, crushes foes with vine whips that thicken from saplings to pythons in blinks. These transformations ripple outward, reshaping habitats. Evolved forms claim new territories, their heightened metabolisms scorching soil or aerating lakes with discarded husks. Fossil records from the Sinnoh Plateaus reveal evolutionary graveyards, piles of shed Magikarp scales beside triumphant Gyarados vertebrae, the weak culled in aquatic arenas. Its evolution weaponized, a biological arms race where the surge of change decides empires. And as we witness these raw powers unfold, you can't help but wonder how such forces would entwine with our own kind. Up next in Chapter 16, Human and Pokémon Coexistence, we'll uncover the fragile alliances, the ethical quagmires, and the hidden dangers of sharing our world with these ever-evolving titans. What happens when their power meets our ambition? Those evolutionary stones and chemical surges don't just transform Pokémon, they've shaped the very foundation of our world alongside them. Long before trainers roamed with teams at their sides, humans learned to coexist through necessity in the sweat-soaked fields of ancient farmlands where the first true partnerships took root. Picture the dawn of agriculture around 10,000 years ago, when scattered tribes in fertile river valleys first tamed the wild chaos of nature. There, amid the churned earth of the Indus Plains or the Nile's floodplains, early farmers didn't wield plows alone. Tauros lumbered beside them, their massive hooves breaking soil harder than any wooden tool, muscles rippling under hides scarred from wild charges now harnessed for the harvest. These weren't captures, they were alliances born of mutual survival. A Tauros herd, once rampaging through grasslands, found safety in human pens. Their strength traded for feed and protection from predators like Luxray packs stalking the night. You can almost hear the rhythm of it, the low bellows echoing at sunrise, the creak of yokes fashioned from sturdy vines, the dust rising in clouds as herds pulled stone-weighted sleds across parched earth. Miltank joined soon after, their udders swelling with nutrient-rich milk that sustained entire villages through lean winters. No mere livestock, these Pokémon shared the labour. Their milk not just food, but a balm for wounds, infused with proteins that accelerated healing far beyond what herbs alone could offer. Farmers whispered of the bond of Thier, an unspoken pact where a Pokémon's loyalty grew with each shared season. Their evolutions triggered not by stones, but by the steady pulse of human care. Eve lines shifting into hardy forms, suited to the plough or the herd. This bond deepened over millennia, spreading like roots through every continent. In the misty highlands of what we now call Johto, herders paired with Marip, whose wool charged primitive lanterns against the endless dark, while in Hoen's volcanic slopes, Numel carried burdens through ash-choked paths, their fiery backs warming chilled hands. These weren't dominions, they were symbioses, where humans provided strategy and shelter, and Pokémon offered raw power beyond mortal limits. Archaeological digs reveal it all. Bones of ancient Growlithe mingled with human remains in communal graves, their fire sacks still potent enough to ignite tinder after centuries. The partner bond, as scholars later named it, wasn't myth. It was etched in the soil, the prerequisite for civilizations to flourish. But no partnership reshaped society more profoundly than the arrival of Chansey and her kin in the annals of medicine. Fast forward to the Industrial Age, when plagues ravaged crowded cities and battlefields reeked of gangrene. Enter Chansey, the wandering healer of folklore made flesh, her pouch cradling eggs that pulsed with an otherworldly luminescence. One egg cracked open in a Victorian-era infirmary didn't just nourish, it regenerated tissue on contact. Scientists peering through early microscopes marveled at the yolk's composition, a cocktail of stem cell precursors, growth factors, and antibodies that targeted pathogens with surgical precision, mending bones in days what took months before. You feel the shift in the air of those first hospitals, the sterile tang of ether mingling with the faint, sweet scent of Chansey eggs hatching into life-saving salves. By the 20th century, breeding programs had elevated Blissey, the evolved form, to the pinnacle of medical miracles. Her eggs, larger and more potent, revolutionized surgery. A single infusion could halt sepsis in its tracks, rebuild organs ravaged by war or disease. Pharmacies stocked vials of purified Blissey extract, turning terminal illnesses into curable footnotes. During the great pandemics, fleets of Chansey waddled through quarantined wards. Their joyful cries a counterpoint to the moans of the afflicted. Pouches never emptying thanks to their bizarre biology, eggs reforming through rapid ovarian cycles fueled by ambient happiness. Modern hospitals still rely on them. You'll find Blissey in every ER, their massive frames gently cradling patients. Those eggs, the unsung heroes, behind transplants that succeed 9 times out of 10. Yet this coexistence isn't without shadows, dilemmas that gnaw at the conscience, even as they power our world. Consider the Pokeball, that unassuming red and white sphere, a marvel of biocompression technology born from Kanto's labs in the mid-20th century. Pressurized to withstand oceanic depths or stratospheric heights, it miniaturizes Pokémon through a quantum field that folds their mass into a stable energy state. Wild Arcanine reduced to pocket size, released only on command. Efficient? Undeniably. A trainer's team, portable and always ready, turned exploration into an everyday feat. But ethics fracture under scrutiny. Is it consent when a wild Pidgey, soaring free over emerald canopies, gets yanked into that vacuum-sealed prison? Biologists argue the ball induces a trance-like stasis, painless as sleep, with recall rates near 100% survival. Yet activists point to the wild ones who never adapt, the Rattata thrashing in panic upon release, instincts shattered by confinement, or the Lapras who beach themselves after months compressed, their migratory songs silenced. Capture quotas now regulate it, mandating wild release programs. But the debate rages in forums and streets. Are we partners or jailers? Human expansion pushes habitats to the brink. Deforestation for farmland claiming Bulbasaur groves, urbanization displacing Geodude colonies, and the ball becomes both saviour and shackle, allowing relocation but at the cost of freedom. These tensions simmer beneath the harmony, forcing us to question every bond. We've built empires on Pokémon backs, healed generations with their gifts. Yet the wild call lingers, a reminder that true coexistence demands more than utility. It craves respect. And as we grapple with these wild hearts tamed by tech, whispers persist of greater mysteries. Beings unbound by agriculture or medicine, forces that legends have guarded for eons. Up next, in the legendary myths, we'll uncover those colossal enigmas that eclipse even our deepest partnerships. As humanity forged those early bonds with Pokémon like Chansey, turning wild encounters into partnerships that healed and sustained us, whispers began to spread of beings so immense they seemed to command the elements themselves. Sailors off storm-ravaged coasts spoke of a colossal bird cloaked in eternal frost, its wings slicing through blizzards with the precision of a glacier carving valleys. These weren't idle tales spun by weary travellers. Eyewitness accounts from the 1800s, logged in maritime journals from the North Atlantic, describe a massive avian form plunging through hurricane-force winds, its body shimmering with iridescent blue feathers that refract light into blinding halos. Articuno, they called it in hushed tones, a creature whose cryogenic plumage generates sub-zero temperatures capable of flash-freezing ocean spray mid-air. Biologists today pore over satellite imagery from polar vortices, spotting anomalous thermal signatures, plumes of supercooled air spiraling in patterns that defy atmospheric models. This isn't myth, it's migration. Articuno rides the jet stream's fury, its wing beats amplifying low-pressure systems into full-blown tempests, dispersing seeds of extremophile algae across ice flows to sustain microbial ecosystems in the harshest realms. High above equatorial thunderheads, another shadow eclipses the lightning. Zapdos streaks through cumulonimbus towers, its feathers charged like living capacitors, storing electrostatic energy from thousands of strikes per storm. Reports from aviators in the 1950s flying cargo routes over the Pacific detail a golden blur diving into electrified clouds, emerging with arcs of plasma dancing along its form. The bird's biology harnesses piezoelectric crystals embedded in its skeletal structure, converting mechanical stress from thunderous dives into bursts of raw voltage. Ground crews at remote airfields have measured spikes in geomagnetic interference during these sightings, surges that overload instruments and ignite wildfires miles away. Zapdos doesn't merely survive extreme weather, it thrives in it, catalyzing ionospheric reactions that seed rain across drought-stricken savannas, a feathered fulcrum balancing chaos and renewal. And from the calderas of active volcanoes, where ash chokes the sky and lava rivers carve new earth, Moltres rises on thermals of molten fury. Indigenous accounts from the Andes, etched into petroglyphs dating back millennia, depict a phoenix-like entity bursting from pyroclastic flows, its flames not consuming, but sustaining life in infernos. Modern drone footage from Hawaii's Kilauea captures fleeting glimpses, wings of smouldering orange plumage, trailing embers that ignite symbiotic fungi in the soil below. This bird's feathers are laced with hyper-efficient bioluminescent compounds, oxidizing atmospheric oxygen to propel itself through sulfuric gases unscathed. Its presence correlates with geothermal upwellings, where nutrient-rich vents birth entire coral-like colonies in submerged craters. Together, these three, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, form a triad of atmospheric regulators, their synchronized migrations pulsing with global weather cycles, glimpsed only when humanity's gaze pierces the veil of storms. Yet if these birds sculpt the skies, deeper forces churn beneath the waves and crust, their clashes echoing through geologic time. Consider the scarred seabeds off Indonesia, riddled with trenches deeper than Everest is tall, where seismic records reveal rhythmic upheavals every few thousand years. Groudon and Kyogre, titans of land and sea, their ancient rivalry, a biological arms race etched into the planet's bones. Groudon, a colossal saurian adapted to subduction zones, exhales drought-inducing aerosols from dorsal vents, desiccating coastlines to expose mineral veins that fuel its photosynthetic armor. Fossil pollen layers from the Pleistocene show abrupt shifts, lush tropics turning to dust bowls overnight, as if the Earth itself rebelled. Kyogre counters from abyssal plains, its hydrostatic fins pumping oceanic currents into frenzy, flooding lowlands with primal deluges. Core samples from the Mariana Trench pull up bioluminescent sediments laced with its prismatic scales, remnants of floods that drowned continents and redistributed species across hemispheres. Their battles aren't mere clashes, they're evolutionary crucibles. When Groudon heaves continents upward, seismic waves trigger mass speciation in isolated highlands. Kyogre's tsunamis, in turn, sweep freshwater lineages into saline nurseries, birthing hybrid adaptations. Today, coral bleaching events and megadroughts bear their signatures, elevated strontium isotopes in ice cores pointing to solar flares amplified by Groudon's solar reflective hide, while anomalous salinity, spikes in the Atlantic, trace Kyogre's migratory pulses. These primal wars have reshaped biodiversity hotspots. The Amazon's flooded forests, echoes of Kyogre's retreats, leaving blackwater rivers teeming with electric-adapted fish. The Sahara's erg dunes, Groudon's territorial claims, now cradling heat-tolerant microbes, waiting for the next surge. Environmentalists track their indirect footprints in climate proxies, tree rings thickened by post-flood monsoons, reef atolls expanded by tectonic lifts. If unchecked, their next convergence could cascade into a hothouse Earth, oceans rising 30 meters, coastlines redrawn in weeks. Balancing these cataclysms stand guardians of equilibrium. Ho-Oh, sovereign of the radiant firmament, and Lugia, whisperer of the ocean's veiled abysses. Ho-Oh soars on rainbow spectrums, its plumage a fractal lattice refracting sunlight into sacred fires that purify tainted airs. Eyewitnesses from Himalayan passes recount its descent during monsoonal lulls, igniting wildflower blooms across scorched plateaus with regenerative ash. This bird's biology channels atmospheric pressure into harmonic resonances, dispersing pollution particulates and stabilizing ozone layers strained by lesser avians' tempests. Lugia dwells in submersed caverns, its psychic aura modulating pressure waves to quell Kyogre's gales. Submarine expeditions near the Tonga Trench have detected infrasonic pulses, low-frequency songs that synchronize cetacean migrations and dampen rogue waves. Silvery fins generate downwelling currents, drawing nutrients from depths to surface blooms that oxygenate dying seas. Together, they embody harmony. Ho-Oh's ascendant blaze tempering Groudon's blaze. Lugia's submerged serenity restraining Kyogre's wrath. Ancient cave art from Polynesia renders them entwined, a yin-yang of feather and fin, their rare convergences heralding eras of bounty. These legends aren't fabrications. They're extrapolations from fleeting proofs, DNA traces in storm debris, isotopic anomalies in deep-sea vents, seismic harmonies aligning with migration paths. In a world where Pokémon evolved alongside us, these myths reveal the wild undercurrents of coexistence, powers too vast for taming, yet intertwined with our fate. As we linger on these elemental enigmas, the story hurtles toward Chapter 18, the future of the species, where we'll uncover how these forces propel evolution into uncharted territories, reshaping life in ways that challenge everything we know. As the echoes of Groudon and Kyogre's primordial clashes fade into geological memory, a far subtler, yet relentlessly accelerating force now reshapes the Pokémon world. you and I, through the inexorable rise of human-driven climate change. Rising global temperatures, shifting ocean currents, and melting polar ice caps aren't just headlines. They're evolutionary crucibles, forging pathways for species we haven't yet named. Consider the polar regions, where woolly herds once grazed on frost-kissed tundra. Now, as permafrost thaws and seas encroach, their dense, heat-trapping wool, once a perfect insulator against Arctic blasts, becomes a liability. Natural selection favours the outliers. Those with sleeker fleeces, perhaps mottled with adaptive algae that photosynthesize in the brief summer glows. Over generations, these variants cluster, mate selectively, and diverge. Biologists tracking early signs in remote outposts report woolly pods splitting into coastal foragers, their hooves broadening for marshy substrates, and upland sprinters with elongated limbs for evading flash floods. This isn't mere adaptation, it's speciation in motion, a new lineage branching from the old, driven by our carbon footprints, venturing deeper into tropical belts where relentless heat waves scorch the canopy. Fire types like talonflame thrive, their plumage igniting in controlled bursts to regulate body heat. Yet even they push boundaries. Fossil records hint at ancient avian Pokémon that under Eocene hothouse conditions developed symbiotic bacteria in their feathers, converting excess thermal energy into bioluminescent displays for nocturnal mating rituals. Today, as monsoons intensify and dry spells lengthen, talonflame fledglings exhibit proto-glows, faint azure flickers amid the embers, signalling a potential split. One branch might evolve into crepuscular hunters, feathers veined with coolant capillaries drawn from hyperoxygenated storm air. Another into subterranean nesters, burrowing into sun-baked earth where volcanic gases fuel chemosynthetic metabolisms. Human expansion amplifies this. Our sprawling megacities pump particulates into the atmosphere, creating microclimates that isolate populations, accelerating genetic drift into novel forms. Oceans tell an even more profound tale. Mantine's symbiotic remoraid, once content in temperate currents, now face acidification eroding their coral nurseries. Survivor strains develop crystalline exoskeletons, precipitated from calcium supersaturated by upwelling vents. Vents widened by seismic tremors from our industrial din. These crystal remoraid latch onto mantine variants with reinforced gill slits, forming superswarms that migrate poleward. Trailing iridescent wakes visible from orbital scans, divers in the altered Great Barrier report sightings of proto-mantine hybrids, fins fused into sail-like hydrofoils for riding mega-tsunamis, their underbellies pulsing with bioelectric fields to stun prey amid oxygen-starved dead zones. Climate models predict dozens such emergencies by century's end, each a testament to life's tenacity amid our unintended experiment. But gaze upward, beyond the roiling atmosphere, and the horizon expands into the cosmos. Space exploration, humanity's boldest leap, unveils questions that tether Pokémon origins to the stars. None more enigmatic than Deoxys and Clefairy. Deoxys, that mutable viral enigma, defies terrestrial evolution. Its core, a crystalline nucleoid encased in regenerative membranes. Mirrors, meteoritic chondrites, recovered from Antarctic ice. Spectral analysis of its DNA reveals isotopic signatures, xenon 129 enrichments, identical to Martian regolith, suggesting panspermia. Cosmic seeds hurled earthward in the late heavy bombardment, 4 billion years past. Astronauts on lunar outposts whisper of Deoxys-like signatures in regolith samples, polymorphic proteins that shift under cosmic radiation, hinting at a progenitor virus thriving in vacuum-exposed craters. Clefairy's lunar affinity runs deeper still. Folklore ties them to moonstones, but genomic sequencing uncovers retroviral insertions unique to selenophilic species, genes activated by low-gravity cues, mimicking tidal pulls. Fossilized moon prints, delicate, three-toed impressions, in Tranquility Base, ejecta suggest Clefairy ancestors rode Apollo-era debris trails, or perhaps ancient impacts lofted them skyward from primordial seas. Current missions probe this. Probes to Europa's subsurface oceans seek Clefairy analogues, buoyant blobs with metamorphic wings for gliding under ice sheets, while Mars rovers catalogue fairy fossils, microbial mats with Clefairy's signature pink porphyrins glowing under UV flares. If Deoxys embodies extraterrestrial invasion, Clefairy whispers of exiles returning home, their migrations now aided by our rockets piercing the veil. You feel it, don't you? The thrill of these frontiers where Pokémon biology intersects our ambitions. Yet this duality births profound tension. Our drive to explore, to engineer, risks unraveling the web we've only begun to map. Picture vast orbital habitats, where zero-gravity breeds float cell variants with perpetual levitation bladders, or gene-edited legendaries tamed for terraforming distant worlds. But hubris lurks. Recall the near-extinction events from unchecked legendary summonings, now compounded by geoengineering mishaps, cloud-seeding storms that birthed rogue Zapdos flocks, their thunder amplified by ionized pollutants. Humanity stands at the fulcrum. We've coexisted through partner bonds, revolutionized medicine with Blissy's ovular elixirs, harnessed Pidgeot's aerodynamics for sustainable flight. Yet the natural Pokémon world pulses with autonomy, Parasec's fungal empires reclaiming fallow fields, Skarmory flocks patrolling ozone-ravaged skies as unwitting healers, their metallic plumage catalyzing atmospheric repair. Disrupt this balance, and repercussions cascade. New species born of our warming world might view us as the ultimate evolutionary pressure, adapting not with us, but against. In quiet moments, like these under starlit canopies, you sense the pact unspoken. Tend the symbiosis, curb emissions to let Wooloo lineages stabilize, fund probes that honor Clefairy's celestial heritage, and we evolve together, guardians of biodiversity's grand tapestry. Ignore it, and the species rising from our ashes may inherit a Pokémon world remade in Indifference's image, where Deoxys mutations outpace our corrections, and Groudon's droughts become eternal. So here we pause, on the precipice of tomorrow, where your choices echo through evolutionary time, the delicate harmony between us and them, fragile as a Clefairy's moonbeam, resilient as life's unyielding spark. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.